Chapter 882. On the 28th of May, the second prince of the Celestial Empire, Jianghu, returned to the imperial capital, Laohan City, to hold his ascension ceremony, but secretly ordered the commanders of the Heaven's End Army and the Earth's End Army to immediately attack the borders of the Blackstone Empire. The flames of war rose everywhere, and the territories of the Celestial Empire were instantly engulfed by the flames of war. The Emperor, Shi Yuan, randomly sent the Gale Regiment to the borders to fight, while Feng Yang arrived at the borders 2 days later and engaged in a bloody battle with the Heaven's End Army and the Earth's End Army. Corpses littered the ground, and blood flowed like rivers. The war between the Celestial Empire and the Blackstone Empire also shocked the Tianji Empire in the far north. Bei Ming Yuan immediately gave the order to mobilize all the troops within the borders to defend, at the same time waiting for an opportunity to strike. As soon as there was an opportunity, they would launch a lightning-fast strike. The relationship between the three empires became even more complicated and confusing. In the 6th month, the scorching hot summer arrived, and even the imperial soldiers guarding the steel walls were no longer wearing their armor. What was rare was that the Luo River estuary had not been in battle for over a month, and the rare peace allowed everyone to feel a trace of peace. Even behind the steel walls, groups of merchants began to gather. The army required a large amount of resources, and just relying on the transportation from the Ministry of Revenue was far from enough. In truth, the majority of the supplies were purchased from the local merchants, and this was something that Lin Muyu had tacitly agreed to. 20 li south of the Luo River estuary, on a verdant mountain range, rock goats were hopping about, while a scarlet python was entrenched on a huge tree, watching its prey from afar, while wild rabbits were searching for food by the river. Birds were chirping, and everything seemed so peaceful. A handsome young man sat cross-legged on a rock with his eyes closed tightly. He seemed to have fused with everything in the surroundings, and every strand of his aura rose and fell with the wind. His body was suffused with a faint glow like a pearl, but it didn't conflict with everything in the surroundings. It was even to the extent that the pythons, rock goats, and other living beings nearby didn't notice his existence at all. The formless elephant art's power came from all living things, and this was the unique aspect of Lin Muyu's training. It was rare for the Luo River estuary stronghold to be peaceful for a period of time, and this period of time was also a precious time for Lin Muyu to focus on training and seeking a breakthrough. His palms were placed on his legs, and the 2 demon spirit stones in his palms were only remnants, and most of the spiritual energy had been refined. Ever since he started training the formless elephant art, Lin Muyu's speed of absorbing spiritual energy had increased by leaps and bounds. The formless elephant art consumed a large amount of divine energy, and every time he used it, it felt like his body was emptied of energy. This made Lin Muyu refine some low-grade godheads and demon spirit stones more frequently, and his strength had also increased by leaps and bounds. This kind of growth was far beyond Lin Muyu's expectations. Within the peaceful aura, strands of energy spread out, and every breath carried a pulse of energy, a total of 36 pulses. Ever since he stepped into the God King realm, Lin Muyu's cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds, and the speed of his cultivation was far beyond his expectations. In less than a month he had already broken through to the 6th stage of the Grotto Heaven realm, and the price was 2 broken godheads, and as many as 50 demon venerables and 4th-grade demon spirit stones. He slowly opened his eyes, and the formless elephant art's power pulsed in his body, as if it was connected to everything around him. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile faintly. It seemed like the formless elephant art had also made a breakthrough. Embracing all phenomena of the world, that was the strongest realm of this law. He raised his palm gently, and pointed it straight at the mountain in the distance. He silently chanted, "Everything in the world, listen to my command." Buzz, buzz. Amidst the faint buzzing sound, the power in his palm suddenly became thick, as if he was holding the weight of a mountain in his hand. Moreover, this was not Lin Muyu's own strength, but borrowed. That's right, the 2nd stage of the formless elephant art's strength, borrowing power. Borrowing the power of the mountain, the power that could be unleashed was far beyond what Yi Xiang Dibai could compare with. The power in his palm became thicker and thicker, to the point that Lin Muyu could barely hold it. The elephant tower in his high spun rapidly and produced elephant wheels one after another. When there were 10 elephant wheels, all the power gathered in his palm. The second stage of the formless elephant art strength, 10 elephants punishing the heavens. Borrowing power, Lin Muyu's palm slowly sank down, and suddenly, with a boom, the forest within 100 meters in front of her completely caved in, as if it was being crushed by a huge mountain. The towering trees turned into powder, and the river flowed. With a boom, a shockwave spread out to both sides, and in the blink of an eye, the entire forest was razed to the ground. Lin Muyu was silent, but his heart was in turmoil. What a strong formless elephant art, as expected of the absolute art created by God Emperor Fuxi of the sky beyond heaven. In terms of lethality, the 7 luminaries and the formless elephant art were not too far apart, but the 7 luminaries was too overbearing, while the formless elephant art was calm and unruffled. Once it was unleashed, the destructive power was even greater than the 7 luminaries. This was like the characteristics of the 2 god emperors. The 7 luminaries' demon emperor was forthright and distinguished between kindness and hatred, while Fuxi cared about all things and had compassion for the common people. But no matter how much they changed, their understanding of power was actually the same. Unknowingly, Lin Muyu had a new understanding of divine power. This kind of understanding was probably something that most gods would never be able to comprehend in their entire lives. This was the difference between realms. After obtaining the sovereign personality, Lin Muyu's talent and potential had been greatly improved. In the eyes of the common people, he was a genius among geniuses. He was far from the level of the 4 luminaries heroes of Lanyan. However, the common people still remembered him as the 4 luminaries of Lanyan, because they were the orthodox and were personally conferred by Emperor Qin Jin. The common people were too far away from gods, and almost no one had seen a real god. However, the emperor could be known from the prefectures, and other places. The common people had the emperor in their hearts, but they might not necessarily have a god. At the foot of the mountain, a row of fine horses galloped over. It was the elite cavalry of the Longdan army camp led by Wei Chou, Bai Yin, and the others. Your Highness. Looking at the forest that had been razed to the ground, Wei Chou could not help but gasp in amazement. He galloped forward and asked, Your Highness, are you all right? I'm fine. Lin Muyu shook her head and asked, What's the matter? There's one thing. Wei Chou hung the bow back on the side of the warhorse and said, Our Warhawk scouts found many warships of the Tianji Empire on the East Sea. They seem to be mobilizing their troops. If I'm not wrong, the Baiminghuan has already mobilized their warships to launch an attack from the sea since they couldn't break through our Luo River estuary fortress. After the Blue Wind Sea battle, the Tianji Empire doesn't have many warships left. How many people can they mobilize? I don't know, but they have at least 500 warships left. I think they can mobilize 100,000 people to attack quickly. We must be on guard. Yes, send more Warhawk scouts to investigate. Once their main force really boards the ships, we will also move together and fight them on the shore. Yes. How's the cavalry training going? Not bad. Wei Chou touched his nose. What do you mean, not bad? How many do you have? Lin Muyu was speechless. Wei Chou smiled and said, 8,000. I've scrounged up everything I could and almost broke the doorsteps of the Ministry of Revenue, the Holy Temple, and the Ministry of War. Finally, I got 6,000 warhorses. Including the 2,000 that Your Highness brought back, we have exactly 8,000. This is all we have. Together, we can form a cavalry battalion. There are only 6,000 warhorses in the entire Lingdong province. Lin Muyu frowned and said, Yes, Your Highness, you may not know this, but Lingdong is the most barren province to begin with. Moreover, we've been at war for many years, and the people are weary and the treasury is empty. These 6,000 warhorses were gathered from all over the place. I even asked for the warhorses used by the Minister of War to pull the carriage. Zhen Yifan also contributed 100 warhorses from his personal guards. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be able to gather 6,000. Lin Muyu was slightly stunned and said, Lord Fan really handed over the mounts of his personal guard. I really didn't expect that Xing Yifan would be so indecisive back then. What made him become such a loyal official? It's actually very simple. Wei Chou touched his nose and said, "But I said that your highness can't blame me." "Say it." "Yes." Wei Chou pondered for a moment and said, "When the Radiant King Qin Jin was still alive, the empire only had Jin Yifan, Chu, and a few other sacred domains. At that time, Zheng Yifan could be said to be second only to the Radiant King. But later on, the four heroes of Lan Yan appeared. Your Highness, Prince Exen, Feng Jixing, Princess Shi, and the others' cultivation kept breaking through and surpassed Duke Fan. Now, Duke Fan can't even be ranked in the top 5 in the empire with his strength. It's because his strength isn't up to par. When a person's strength is far from his expectations, he can only restrain himself and accept reality. If Xing Yifan dies in battle now, he can still leave behind a good name and maintain his ranking in the Lingyun Pavilion. Otherwise, as he said this, Wei Chou smiled faintly and said, "Everyone is playing a game and gambling on whether the empire can hold on and defeat the Tianji Empire and the Blackstone Empire. If they can, we will be the heroes of the Shattered Cauldron realm in the future. We will be famous generals with unparalleled merits. This is because the current situation in the Shattered Cauldron realm has never been seen in 10,000 years. What do you think, Your Highness?" Lin Muyu glanced at him and jumped down from the huge rock. She said, "You're really good at judging people now. You're getting better at being an official." I'm completely reliant on Your Highness's guidance." "Cut the crap. Is there any other news?" "Yes, there's another piece of good news. The Celestial Empire has declared war on the Blackstone Empire. Both sides have already started fighting at the border. This was news from 3 days ago." Has the Celestial Empire finally made a move? Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. It seems that Qin Yu has already ascended to the throne. Your Highness is wise. Chen Yu is indeed the ruler of the Celestial Empire now. That's good. With Chen Yu holding back part of the main forces of the Tianji Empire and the Blackstone Empire in the east, we'll have enough time to breathe here. Yes. Is there any news about Shaoxi? Not yet. No news is a good thing. This means that the Seven Seas province hasn't started fighting yet. Chapter 883. In the western part of the Yunling Mountains, 3/4 of the Yunzhong province was surrounded by clouds and mist. The Yunling Mountains were much steeper and more rugged than the Qinling Mountains. The Qinling Mountains might be able to deceive people by crossing the mountains, but it was impossible in the Yunling Mountains. It was thousands of meters above sea level, and it snowed all year round. Avalanches and storms were common occurrences. Not to mention human soldiers, even gods were not willing to face such a severe natural power. Tongyun Pass, a pass that stretched for 5 kilometers, was located between 2 mountains of the Yunling Mountains. It was also the largest passage between the Seven Seas province and the Yunzhong province. But after the war, the gate of Tongyun Pass had been closed, and it refused to let businessmen and refugees pass through. However, the Yunzhong province had fallen, and countless people who had lost their homes still gathered in the fertile land in the east of Tongyun Pass. Every day, people died of hunger, and no one buried their bodies. The plague had begun to spread. On the gate, Tang Xiaoxi, dressed in a red dress, looked at the refugee camp in the east from a distance and said, "Can we really not come up with a plan?" Next to her, Chen Xiaoli cupped his hands and said, "Princess, we really can't open the gate. No one knows whether there are soldiers of the Tianji Empire among the refugees. Once they sneak in and open the gate, Tongyun Pass will be in danger. Behind Tongyun Pass are the 40 million people of the Empire of the Seven Seas province." Tang Xiaoxi was silent. After a while, she raised her head, and her bright eyes were particularly cold. "In the afternoon, send my cavalry out of the pass to bring food and water to comfort the people. After all, they are the people of the empire. If we ignore their lives for the sake of the war, what can we do even if we win the war?" "But Princess, don't say it. If Mu and Feng Jixing were here, they would do the same." Chen Xiaoli was a little speechless. As a professional soldier, he knew what to do and what not to do. At this moment, Tang Xiaoxi's actions were not in line with the art of war, but they were in line with the way of a king. Therefore, Chen Xiaoli was a little lost and did not know what to do. Ouyang Yen pursed her red lips and said, "There's a plague outside the city called Lycia. Once infected, one's entire body will fester and die, and there's no cure at all. 3 out of 10 commoners outside the city are infected with this plague. Princess Shi, are you sure you want to bring them into the city? But big sister Chu Yao isn't here. Otherwise, she would definitely have a way to cure this plague." Tang Xiaoxi frowned. "But I can't just watch them die outside the city. Ouyang, do you have any good ideas?" Ouyang Yen was taken aback. "Use my method?" "Yes. That's easy. Just burn them down and everything will be over. Pretend I didn't ask." In the afternoon, the city gates of Tongyun Pass opened. Tang Xiaoxi led 100 cavalrymen out of the city, followed by a transport team that brought supplies from the Seven Seas province into the forest. When this princess appeared in the crowd, the commoners were all dumbfounded. Many of them were covered in ulcers and pus flowed from their bodies, but they didn't expect to see the nobility of the empire before they died. "It's Princess Shi. It's Princess Shi. She's here to bring us food. The empire hasn't given up on us." No one knew who shouted, but everyone knelt down and shouted, "Long live Princess Shi! Long live Princess Shi!" Tang Xiaoxi led her horse and slowly passed through the crowd. Looking at the faces that yearned to live, she felt extremely uncomfortable. The war brought so much pain to the people, but it wasn't something she could control. It would be great if this war could end earlier. It was also at this moment that people felt that Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, Wei Chou, and the other soldiers who fought for the empire were adorable and worthy of respect. "Everyone, please be quiet." Tang Xiaoxi's voice was very clear, and her voice contained the power of laws and spread very far. The crowd quickly quietened down. Tang Xiaoxi looked at the people around her and said, "The empire will never abandon you, and the Qin family will never abandon you. However, the enemy is very strong, and we still need time. Please believe in me, Tang Xiaoxi. The empire will definitely win this war. I've brought food and water for everyone, so please don't fight for it." Everyone cheered in unison. However, at this moment, an old man with a festering left leg looked at Tang Xiaoxi blankly and said, "Princess Shi, does this mean that the empire doesn't intend to open Tongyun Pass and let us go to the Seven Seas province?" Tang Xiaoxi was a little sad and said, "The plague is wreaking havoc outside the city. Once everyone enters Tongyun Pass, the plague will wreak havoc inside the pass, and our 150,000 elite soldiers will face annihilation. However, don't worry, I'll send people to set up tents outside the pass and provide food and water every day." "What did you say? Are you telling us to wait for death here?" A burly man with festering face roared angrily, "We are the people of the empire, why can't we enter Tongyun Pass? You useless nobles only know how to enjoy yourselves in a good place, and you don't care about the lives of our people at all." The people fell into a desperate situation and began to curse. "Scram, put away your hypocritical face. The Qin family is all trash, and you're just a dog of the Qin family. You're even more useless. Hypocritical empire, die early." Tang Xiaoxi turned around, still leading her warhorse, and walked in the direction of Tongyun Pass. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She had never suffered such humiliation before. Around her, the refugees even picked up stones and threw them at her, but they were all bounced off by the power of the divine wall. Ouyang Yen followed behind Tang Xiaoxi without saying a word. After walking for a while, Ouyang Yen said, "Let's follow my method and burn them down." Tang Xiaoxi looked at the weeds under the horse's hooves and cried loudly, "I represent the royal family of the Qin Empire. They can let me down, but I can't let them down. Mu and Xiao Yin have already suffered so much. How can I throw a tantrum here?" She was sobbing. Everyone understood the reason, but who could guarantee that they would be able to bear it if they really reached the point of being deserted by their own people? Ouyang Yen pursed her red lips and said, "No wonder Qin Han chose to ascend without hesitation. The matters of the mortal world are indeed as muddy as a pool of muddy water. Unfortunately, Lin Muyu and you are too attached to promises and responsibilities. Otherwise, you can directly ascend to the Eastern Heaven Realm. With the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor protecting you, you can completely dominate the Eastern Heaven Realm. Don't say any more, Tang Xiaoxi bit her red lips and said, leave the food and water behind. All the guards who go out of the city with us must be isolated for observation. They can only stop the isolation if there is no illness within 10 days. The same. Don't worry, we are gods. This kind of plague in the mortal world can't infect our bodies at all. Are we really that powerful? Of course. Then why do I feel that I have suffered so much? Tang Xiaoxi's eyes were red. Ouyang Yan looked at her with some heartache. Because you are a good person. Kind people are bullied by others. Human nature is like this, selfish and greedy. You always think for others, but others may not do the same. Follow my temper and burn these ungrateful, stupid and ignorant people. We are gods, and we are qualified to release them from purgatory. No need. Tang Xiaoxi shook her head. The Qin family needs the hearts of the people and the world to save the dynasty of the great Qin Empire. There are some things I can't do. Go back. On the city wall, Qin Xiaoli looked at everything from afar and didn't say a word. After a while, she said to the 2 deputies behind her, I will help Princess Shi with the things she can't do. Go and make preparations. We will take action after midnight. Yes, Lord Commander. Night fell. When night fell, the city gates opened and a group of 7 Seas City's elite cavalry galloped out. They held torches in their hands, and the horses behind them had heavy sacks strapped to their backs. Each sack was filled with Jinin coins. Chen Xiaoli held her spear and galloped at the front. She charged into the refugee camp and started to scatter gold coins into the crowd. At the same time, she shouted, take the money and go to Twilight Rain City to find a way out. Don't stay here. Take the money and you can live. If you continue to stay here, you can only wait for death. The crowd was in a mess, and the people fought for the gold coins. Chen Xiaoli brought a total of nearly 1,000 cavalrymen out of the city. Everyone's mouth and nose were covered with cloth, and they scattered gold coins everywhere. When every commoner received a lot of gold coins, Chen Xiaoli immediately raised her spear and shouted, go! Everyone leave! Kill those who don't leave! Many people in the crowd of refugees objected. Dang, thing. Their swords were unsheathed, and the cavalry soldiers swiftly cut down dozens of stubborn people. Fresh blood was still dripping from the blades, and the refugees were all stunned. They had never thought that Chen Xiaoli would actually dare to make a move. Scram. If you don't scram now, you will all die under my blade. Chen Xiaoli was decisive. She raised her spear and had a bit of Feng Jixing's demeanor. The cavalry drove the people out of the refugee camp and headed straight for Twilight Rain City. The next morning, Tang Xiaoxi was furious when she received the news of the chaos outside the city last night. In the general's residence, Chen Xiaoli was already tied up and kneeling in the hall with the 2 deputies. What is going on? Tang Xiaoxi was so angry that her face turned red. Chen Xiaoli, how dare you use weapons against the people? Do you still have me in your eyes? Yes. Chen Xiaoli knelt on the ground and said with red eyes, Princess Shi, Chen Xiaoli, was originally a general of 7 Seas City. I was promoted by Prince Xian after my father died. I, Chen Xiaoli, am a general of the Tang clan. I'm not willing to see Princess Shi suffer such humiliation. I've already chased away the bunch of ingrates outside the city, but I've given them gold horn coins so that they won't starve to death on the road. Moreover, if they bring the plague to Twilight Rain City, they will also spread it to the hundreds of thousands of Longji Corps and Wolf soldiers in Twilight Rain City. Why shouldn't we do it? What about the millions of people in Twilight Rain City? Tang Xiaoxi said indifferently, who will care about their lives? Chen Xiaoli raised her head, her proud face full of smiles. There's no such thing as having the best of both worlds. Wanting to defeat the enemy and protect the people at the same time, there hasn't been such a thing since ancient times. Princess Shi, behead me and use my head as a sacrifice to those who died in vain. Use my blood to wash away the stain I brought to the Qin clan. You really have the guts to say that? Tang Xiaoxi slammed the table. Drag her out and behead her. Everyone was shocked and trembled in fear, not daring to speak. Ouyang Yan's lips curled up. You generals are all fools. Don't you know how to plead for mercy? The group of generals hurriedly knelt together and pleaded for mercy. On account of so many people pleading for mercy, I'll spare your life. Tang Xiaoxi didn't want to kill Chen Xiaoli. Otherwise, who would be guarding the city and leading the troops? Her gaze turned cold and she said indifferently, demote her by 1 rank, forfeit her salary for half a year, and put her in confinement for a day. Chen Xiaoli's face was full of smiles as if she had been promoted by 3 ranks. Thank you, Princess Shi, for sparing my lowly life. Chapter 884. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. The news of Lingnan finally reached the eastern capital, Dongshuang City. The entire eastern capital was shaken. No one would have thought that even a famous general like Su Jiantao had surrendered to someone else. From the messenger's mouth, they could even faintly feel that Su Jiantao had surrendered. In Lingxi's palace, the officials were discussing. Everyone had already arrived before the morning court started. Without a doubt, the matter of Lingnan would be the first major event of today's court. Lin Muyu, who had hurried back to Dongshuang City the day before, had already put on Wang Zhu's armor and entered the palace side by side with Qin Yan. In the days when Feng Jixing wasn't here, only the 2 of them had the final say. Big brother, is the news true? Qin Yan and Lin Muyu stood side by side in front of the throne and asked worriedly. Yes, it's most likely not fake. Lin Muyu nodded and looked at the officials. She found that Su Yu, Zhen Yifan, Zhen Fang, and the others all had anxious expressions. Everyone knew that the military force of Lingnan was already one of the main forces of the empire. Xiang Yu's 70,000 men and Su Jiantao's 50,000 made up a total of 120,000 elites. They were the Qin Empire's reliance against the Blackstone Empire. If these 120,000 men and horses all surrendered to someone else, then Lingnan had already changed its banner. The court meeting begins. The eunuch announced loudly. Outside the palace, a group of imperial guards guarded all the entrances and exits. Their swords and armor were bright and glowed faintly under the morning light. The Qin Empire had lasted for tens of thousands of years. No one knew how long this light could shine. Almost everyone in the world felt that the Qin Empire's fate had come to an end. However, Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, Tang Xiaoxi, and the others were still working hard. They firmly believed that a miracle would happen. It had always been so. Bring the messenger. Lin Muyu waved her hand and said indifferently. Yes. Wei Chou cupped his fists and signaled with his eyes. 2 soldiers from the Longdan army camp brought in a man in the Empire's military uniform. He had escaped from Lingnan, which was why he had released the news. What's your name? Lin Muyu asked without anger. This lowly one's name is Fan and I. His entire body trembled. Which department are you from? This lowly one originally belonged to the 3rd Battalion of the Military Governor's Office of Tsangnan Province. I followed Lord Tsangnan Marquis Su Jiantao on an expedition to Lingnan and was then assigned to the 11th Battalion of Combat. 6 days ago, this lowly one was still in Dragon-Slaying Pass. Because I was punished for fighting with others, I stole a horse. Along the way, I earned gold and silver to cross the Qinling Mountains and came to Winterfrost City to look for your highness. Lin Muyu looked at him calmly. Her clear eyes seemed to be able to see through Fan and I. She said, I won't pursue the matter of you defying military law for now. Tell me what happened in Lingnan. Yes, your highness. Fan and I knelt on the ground again, raised his head and said, the Blackstone Empire marched straight into Lingnan and won every battle. Later on, the Marquis crushed their edge. After that, the Marquis gathered his troops in Dragon-Slaying Pass. It was also at that time that we learned that the Celestial Pole Continent's Battle Angel Corps was split into 2. They seemed to have split up. Dora was one faction, while Xin was the other. Xin led 6 battle angels and a group of troops using strange weapons to infiltrate Lingnan. Later on, for some reason, Duke Yu surrendered to Xin. Furthermore, This lowly one heard that Xin's army met Marshal Xin of Iha country. Later on, the Marquis offered dragon-slaying pass and allowed Xin's men to settle in. Have you seen Xin? No. Fan and I shook his head and said, but this subordinate saw with my own eyes that Xin's men replaced ours. Although the Empire's purple flower flag is still fluttering in dragon-slaying pass, Xin's Battle Angel Corps' war flag is also fluttering. What is Su Jiantao doing? Lin Muyu said, slightly angered. In the crowd, a middle-aged general cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, Su Jiantao's troops have not reported any news to the eastern capital for nearly 10 days. Furthermore, the Battle Eagle scouts we sent have not returned. There is no news at all. This general believes that Su Jiantao's actions are tantamount to treason. The Battle Angels are people of the celestial pole continent. Giving dragon-slaying pass, the throat of Lingnan province, to the people of the celestial pole continent, is tantamount to treason. Another old minister also nodded, Your Highness, this subordinate concurs. Marquis Golden Worm and General Wang Qiu, please calm down. This matter has not reached the point where it is certain. No matter what, the Empire's war flag is still fluttering in Dragon-Slaying Pass and Divine Heaven Pass. I believe that Su Jiantao and Xiang you must have some hidden troubles that are difficult to speak of. Lin Muyu gritted her teeth and asked with a cold face, Duke Fan, what do you think? Zheng Yifan kept a low profile and only smiled. Before Su Jiantao and Xiang Yu see us, it is obviously impossible to make a conclusion based on the words of a small pawn. After all, a duke and a marquis are both powerful ministers of the empire who hold heavy military power. We cannot easily convict them. This old minister suggests that we send a trusted aide of your highness to Lingnan to investigate. This is a good idea. Lin Muyu looked disdainfully and asked, Who is willing to go? Among the generals, Wei Chou was the first to stand out. I'll go. No. Lin Muyu shook her head. Wei Chou, you are more familiar with the defense of Luo River Estuary Fortress and Winter Frost City than me. We need you, Duke Wei. If you can't go, who else is willing to go? Situ Sin stepped out of the ranks. This subordinate is willing to go. You can't either. Why? Situ Sin was startled. Your Highness, you don't trust this general? No, General Sin, you are too hot-tempered. If there is any mistake in this matter, I am afraid it will lead to unnecessary trouble. After all, we do not know what that Xin's attitude is at the moment. So, Feng Shi, don't hide. You will go to Dragon-Slaying Pass on my behalf. Feng Shi frowned. Yes, Your Highness. What? You are not willing? Yes. Feng Shi raised his head and said, Your Highness also knows that Bai Minghuan is mobilizing troops to attack Winter Ridge Province. The next battle will decide the fate of Eastern Capital. This subordinate wants to stay here and make a contribution. You want to make a contribution? Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. That is easy. As long as your diplomatic mission to Dragon-Slaying Pass goes smoothly and you can come back alive, I will immediately promote you by 1 rank. You will be in charge of a 20,000-man army. How about it? Really? Of course. Thank you, Your Highness. Feng Shi knelt down on one knee. Wait a moment. Su Er looked at the crowd with her bright eyes and smiled. General Feng Shi is a soldier after all. He is firm and not soft. How about sending another woman to go with him? A woman? Qin Yen was startled. At this time, the first person in the line of female court officials stood up. It was a graceful woman. She was the first female court official by Qin Yin's side, Shangguan Jingyue. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed, and Shangguan Jingyue had matured even more. That kind of steady and virtuous charm could be seen at a glance. She respectfully said, Your Highness, let me go with Sir Feng Shi. Back then, Jingyue had also represented Her Highness on a diplomatic mission to Bailing City. This time, going to Dragon-Slaying Pass to see our own people, I think. Jingyue is more suitable than anyone else. Shangguan Jingyue, aren't you worried that Su Jiantao will really rebel? Lin Muyu smiled and asked. Shangguan Jingyue smiled as well. Your Highness Yu's eyes are like torches. Over the years, many generals of the empire have betrayed or fled, but none of Your Highness's men have betrayed you. So, Shangguan Jingyue firmly believes that Lord Su Jiantao isn't that kind of person. If he is, then he wouldn't dare to fight the 200,000-strong army of the Darkstone Empire commanded by Bailey Qin. Good, you are indeed courageous and insightful. Lin Muyu smiled with satisfaction. However, you cannot bring too many people. After all, the eastern capital also needs manpower, so I will give you 200 and 100 cavalry guards. When you arrive at the dragon-slaying pass, you need to investigate the truth of the matter. Also, bring an Empire's Golden Star medal. If Su Jiantao did not commit treason, then bestow him with a Golden Star medal as a reward. That is what he deserves. Yes. In the afternoon, the diplomatic team left Winter Frost City. The development of the situation was becoming more and more bizarre, and Lin Muyu was already completely unable to guess what was going on. However, he could not personally go to the southern ridges. After all, a battle could break out at the mouth of the Luo River at any time. Once he left, it was likely that it would be difficult for the four absolutes of White Leaves and Chu Chu to resist the numerous God Realm experts of the Tianji Empire. When it was close to evening, Wei Chou directly entered Lingxi Palace and said in a low voice, 5 merchant ships from the Blackstone Empire have docked at the Blue Wind Harbor. They claim to be your Highness's people, and they have delivered the things your Highness needs. Did they say who sent them? They said it was your Highness's younger sister. Lin Muyu's heart thumped. It was Si Kongyao, that's great. He immediately sat up from his desk and said, Wei Chou, fly with me to the Blue Wind Harbor and transport the goods back overnight. We cannot let them be robbed by the pirates of the Blackstone Empire. When night fell, 2 figures floated down from the sky. They were precisely Lin Muyu and Wei Chou. After the Blue Wind Sea battle, the Imperial Navy was almost completely annihilated. However, the Blue Wind Harbor was close to the mainland, so it was still in the hands of the Empire. However, there were not many soldiers stationed here, only a few thousand. Greetings, Your Highness. Greetings, Duke Wei. A group of Imperial soldiers knelt down one after another. Rise, bring me to see the goods. Yes. Inside the harbor, 5 large ships were currently unloading goods. When Lin Muyu and Wei Chou approached, a fat merchant walked forward with a face full of smiles. He cupped his fists and said, This lowly one, Zhuge greets your Highness you. You were sent by Yao? Yes, this lowly one was originally one of the secret merchants of the Celestial Emptiness sect. Eldest Miss Si Kongyao and leader Lu Bai spent a long time to gather these 5 ships' goods. Along the way, in order to open up the sea passage, they spent no less than 100,000 gold coins. Is that so? Lin Muyu was slightly delighted. What's inside? Zhuge smiled and said, 4 of the ships are fully loaded with demon heart stones, enough to forge 500,000 demon heart arrows. The other ship is loaded with gold and silver that Bai Zhe mercenaries plundered from the treasury of the Blackstone Empire, as well as some high-grade demon spirit stones that your Highness needs. Among them, eldest Miss Si Kongyao personally went to Celestial Emptiness City and asked for 7 Demon King-level demon spirit stones from Si Kongming. Before she left, she said that it was specially prepared for you, and others cannot use it without permission. Ah! Lin Muyu was stunned. Wei Chou secretly laughed at the side. Chapter 885. Did Yao really say that? Zhuge nodded his head. Your Highness might not know this, but the Demon King-level demon spirit stones are simply too precious. Even the strongest sect in the continent, the Tianji sect, only has 11 Demon King-level demon spirit stones. This time, Big Miss asked for 8 in one go, saying that it was for her own cultivation. In reality, she only kept 1 for herself, and sent the rest to your Highness. Yao is too considerate. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. Zhuge also smiled. With your Highness use words, eldest young Miss' painstaking efforts were not wasted. This subordinate will tell her the truth. In addition, is there anything else your Highness wants me to tell eldest young Miss? How many soldiers does the Bai Zhe mercenary team have? 100,000 people. Miss Si Kongyao borrowed 20 captaincy from General Zhang Qing to help train the soldiers. Currently, the the Bai Zhe mercenary team's combat power is quite high. They can still borrow the generals? Of course, General Zhang Cheng is Miss Shang Qian's maternal grandfather. Miss Shang Qian personally asked for it, so there's no reason not to borrow them in the future. Immediately return these generals after using them, don't keep them, Lin Muyu said. Understood. Zhuge Heng was also an old fox. He smiled. The Bai Zhe mercenary team will fight with Zhang Cheng's army sooner or later, so the enemy's people naturally can't be kept. That's right. Someone, transport the goods and return to Winter Frost City overnight. Yes. Traveling through the night, they returned to Winter Frost City at noon the next day. Lin Muyu didn't sleep and personally sent the 20 carts of demonic heart stones to the weapons department to find Qin Xiling. When Qin Xiling saw so many demon heart stones, it was as if he had obtained a treasure. He was so happy that he almost danced with joy. Your Highness, where did you get so many demon heart stones? Great. I have a secret channel, Xiling doesn't need to worry about it. Alright, what have you been doing these days? Your Highness, follow me and you will know. Oh! Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, Sidu Sen, and Sidu Shui looked at each other and smiled. Then, they followed Qin Xiling into the large drill ground in the backyard of the Department of Ordnance. Clanking sounds came from afar. No one knew what was being forged. However, this was the secret base of the Qin Empire. Lin Muyu knew that the development of the Department of Ordnance was related to the fate of the entire Qin Empire. After walking for a short distance, they arrived at the archery testing base. A group of weapons division employees were busy loading arrows and then shooting at the rocks in front of them. The arrows sank into the rocks one after another, leaving only the feathers outside. That's the hardest rock in the Winter Ridge province. It's called Coxcomb Rock. Qin Xiling smiled and said, I've improved the torsion device of the arrow box, greatly increasing the shooting speed. Moreover, these arrows are tempered with the dual elements of demonic heart stone and white diamond. The lethality is multiplied. General Sun should also know the principle of shooting, right? Situ Sun nodded. I know a little about the Dragon Imperial Spiral. That's right. Qin Xiling said, although my cultivation is low, I also know that the Dragon Imperial Spiral is a kind of energy field similar to a whirlwind. The power of the Dragon Imperial Spiral is similar to a willow twig rotating with an axis. Its speed is very fast, so it can rely on the centrifugal force on the outside and the dragon crystal to withstand the bombardment of the magic crystal cannon. It can even withstand multiple bombardments without any damage. Therefore, I've focused on increasing the shooting speed of the arrows. As long as the arrows can enter the airflow of the spiral, it will be fine. Lin Muyu was silent. Your Highness, what do you think? Qin Xiling said. Lin Muyu shook her head. I've fought with the Dragon Knights many times, and I know the speed of the Dragon Imperial Spiral. Even if you've improved the speed of the arrow box, it's still far from being able to keep up. The speed of the torsion device is almost destined to be unable to keep up with the Dragon Imperial Spiral. I can give you an exact number. Within the domain of the Dragon Imperial Spiral, there will be at least 15 swirls of air in a second. A normal arrow box probably won't be able to keep up with that speed in its lifetime. My God, so fast! Qin Xiling was stunned. His entire person became somewhat dispirited. The idea that he had painstakingly worked on for half a month had become nothing more than a bubble because of a single sentence from Lin Muyu. This blow was just too great. On the blueprint to the side, there was a hand-drawn drawing of the operating principle of the Dragon Imperial Spiral. The giant dragon and the Dragon Knight were very lifelike. Lin Muyu flipped through a few of the blueprints and couldn't help but marvel at Qin Xiling's conscientiousness. Unfortunately, the development of technology was far from enough. Because of the lack of gunpowder, they lacked the most basic driving force. If the arrows could reach the flying speed of bullets, then they might be able to cause a certain amount of damage to the god-level Dragon Knight. Gunpowder, oh gunpowder! He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Could it be that the heavens were torturing him? Unfortunately, the Shattered Cauldron realm didn't have sulfur, so it was naturally impossible to develop gunpowder. What's gunpowder? Qin Xiling was startled. It's nothing. Lin Muyu leaned on the table, thought for a moment, and said, gunpowder is a product from another plane. Once it explodes, it will produce a huge shockwave, allowing the object to reach an unimaginable speed. If we had gunpowder, we could use the demon heart arrow to shoot it. We should be able to achieve an unexpected result. Propelled by the explosion of gunpowder, Qin Xiling blankly stood where he was. Suddenly, he slapped his thigh and laughed loudly. Thank you, Your Highness, for the reminder. Ah, this is great. Thank you, Your Highness, for the reminder. Lin Muyu looked at him with a stunned expression. Xiling, what are you doing? It's like you've won the lottery. Qin Xiling was extremely excited. His entire body trembled, and he stared at her with disheveled hair and a dirty face, saying, It was Your Highness who reminded me. The shockwave produced by the explosion can greatly increase speed. Perhaps it can break through the limit of speed and destroy the defense of the Dragon Imperial Spiral. So what? Could it be that Your Highness has forgotten the astonishing power produced by the explosion of the magic crystal cannon? What if we cast the arrowhead of the demon heart arrow on the outside of the magic crystal cannon, and then use the power produced by the explosion of the magic crystal cannon to send the demon heart arrow to destroy the Dragon Imperial Spiral? Really? Lin Muyu turned pale with fright. Yes, at least we can try. Qin Xiling laughed excitedly, and Lin Muyu also laughed along as if she had seen the light of dawn. At the side, Wei Chou poured cold water on them. Your Highness, Lord Xiling, don't forget how high the temperature produced by the explosion of the magic crystal cannon is. When we fought against the demons, their armor demons were wearing thick and heavy armor. A magic crystal cannon wouldn't even leave a scrap behind, let alone a small arrowhead like the demon heart arrow. Lin Muyu stilled. That's true. Qin Xiling hadn't calmed down from his excitement yet. His forehead was covered in sweat, and he said, It's fine, we just need to find some materials that can withstand high temperature to melt and refine the demon heart stone. But how can materials that can withstand the high temperature of the magic crystal cannon be melted and refined into a demon heart stone? Wei Chou said, Ah. Qin Xiling was stunned for a moment, and then he pointed at the door of the weapons division. Duke Wei, get out, you are not welcome here. Lin Muyu laughed loudly and patted Qin Xiling's shoulder. Don't rush, think slowly, there will be a way. Qin Xiling nodded and said, Your Highness, please be at ease. Xiling will definitely think of a suitable way to forge this godly weapon and help our Qin family reverse the situation. And we'll leave it to you, then we won't bother you anymore. Xiling, you must remember to eat on time, you've already lost weight. Have you used the few demon race beauties I gave you a few days ago as concubines? No, not yet. Late at night, Lin Muyu once again refined a Demon King level demon spirit stone. Ever since he started cultivating the invisible elephant arts, his body was like a dry well, thirsting for the nourishment of spirit energy. Speaking of which, it was strange that his Qi seemed to have expanded a lot because of the invisible elephant arts. It was bottomless, and even if it was a Demon King level demon spirit stone, he could still absorb at least 80% of its power. With a light breath, the demon spirit stone had already completely disappeared from his palm, and the turbid breath flew into the room through his mouth and nose. Having just finished refining, Lin Muyu could only feel his blood boiling, and this made him very excited. Could it be that he was about to break through again? This invisible elephant arts simply made him feel as if he had the help of the gods. Even in the entire 3 realms, there wouldn't be many people with this kind of breakthrough speed, right? He began to gather the divine power in his body, and attacked the profound entrances of his Qi again and again. The first 30 waves were extremely easy, and only when he reached the 31st wave did he feel a little strained, but he could still control it. In the blink of an eye, he had already broken through the 36th wave. He continued to gather all of his divine power together without hesitation, and crazily attacked the entrance of the profound entrances. With a pu sound, the profound entrances were broken. An intense pain came from his body, but Lin Muyu still maintained a clear mind. Just now, he had already broken through the 37th layer of heavenly passage, but he felt that there was still a bit of potential left in his body, and he could still continue to stimulate it. A crazy thought flashed through his mind: break through 2 realms in one go. The 38th wave crazily surged, and began to attack the 38th profound entrances that had just been formed. Under the crazy attack, the lustrous profound entrances began to distort, and the pain it brought was naturally not something that ordinary people could endure. Lin Muyu let out a cry and spat out a mouthful of blood. The power in his body was like a raging river, and the god-binding chains, the 7 luminaries' holy gourd, the dragon blood battle shield, and other powers quickly passed through his body and were glowing with a buzzing sound. Was he going to go berserk? He was slightly startled, and his mind was already starting to blur. As expected, one shouldn't be too extreme in cultivation. At this moment, Lin Muyu already began to feel a little regretful, but what was the use of regretting? The Catasaurus. A roar that came from the depths of his soul instantly tore open the plain behind him, and a Catasaurus flew out with a loud and clear dragon roar, and transformed into a dragon armor that wrapped around Lin Muyu. At the same time, its dragon power formed a shield and prevented its master's divine power from leaking. Chapter 886. Your Highness, are you all right? Wei Chou and Bai Yin rushed in at almost the same time, only to see Lin Muyu lying on the ground, in the form of dragon scale armor. Her body was trembling slightly, and she had already fainted. Oh no, Your Highness has gone mad. Quickly call Head Deacon Chu Yao and Lord Chu Chu. Wei Chou turned pale with fright. At dawn the next day, half of Lin Muyu Hall was in an uproar. There were at least 10 people surrounding Lin Muyu's room. Chu Chu and Chu Yao were protecting her, while Wei Chou, Su Yu and the others were frowning. No one would have thought that Lin Muyu would actually go mad in cultivation at this time. The power has been basically controlled. Chu Yao released Lin Muyu's wrist, covered herself with the blanket, and stood up. I just need to rest for a while. Don't worry everyone. Before she finished speaking, Lin Muyu had already let out a long sigh and slowly woke up from her coma. At the moment she woke up, Icatosaurus removed its armor and turned into a large dragon, squatting by the bed and winking at its master who had just woken up. You, how is it? Chu Chu asked. I'm fine, Chu. But in reality, her whole body was still sore, but when Lin Muyu slightly circulated her energy, she discovered that the divine power in her body seemed to be longer and more profound. It was a blessing in disguise, and she actually broke through to the 38th layer of Grotto Heaven. Successor, you are too impatient for success. The one who spoke was Scholar Ling Ice Palm and Fire Fist should still be guarding the Luo River estuary, and he rushed over after receiving the news. Lin Muyu nodded, but her mind was full of doubts. She said, Su Hao, I feel that my body has become a little strange. My capacity for energy seems to have increased a lot, to the point where I can't completely fill it even after refining a demon spirit stone every day. What's going on? Isn't this state very abnormal? Scholar Ling smiled. No, it is very normal. How so? The invisible elephant art was created by Fuxi, the celestial emperor. When he sent me the message, he told me that the invisible elephant art stimulates your potential in all aspects. The reason why you feel that your body's capacity has increased is because your potential is constantly being stimulated by the invisible elephant art. Furthermore, you have the disposition of a sovereign, the ruler of the 3 realms. This stage is called the recovery period by the celestial emperor, which means that your cultivation was originally higher than this level. With the help of the invisible elephant art, you will quickly recover to the level of strength that you should have, a level that is enough to fight against the gods and Buddhas. How long will the recovery period last? That would depend on the successor's talent and the degree of refinement of their supreme godhead. Scholar Spirit smiled. In short, you don't have to worry too much about your successor. This recovery period is simply a gift from the heavens. Just enjoy it. At the side, Chu Yao smiled bitterly and said, In that case, isn't Yu's cultivation increasing further and further away from ours? Chu Chu laughed heartily and said, Yes. Scholar Spirit couldn't help but smile. Great Deacon Chu Yao, don't worry. You are the successor's elder sister. Even if the successor is the strongest in the world, he will not forget you in the end. Also, the stronger the successor is, the more help he can provide to his friends. Of course, there was help, such as the 1,000 demon spirit stones that Si Kong Yao sent over. Lin Muyu suddenly felt a little dizzy and said, I'm a little tired. Everyone, go back to your work. Let me rest for a while. The crowd dispersed. Oh, Acatosaurus shook its head. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. She reached out and patted its big head and asked, Where have you been these days? Why can't I sense your existence? Acatosaurus replied loudly. Lin Muyu's face darkened. She couldn't understand anything and said, Wei Cho, send someone to feed Acatosaurus meat. It's probably hungry. Yes, Your Highness. Continuing to lie on the bed, Lin Muyu didn't do anything this time. However, the divine power in her body flowed like a stream. It was as if every cell in her body was recovering. Just like what Scholar Spirit said, her body was recovering to an unknown peak strength. She really didn't know to what extent she would recover. Perhaps she would be able to enter the ranks of the God Emperors? If that was the case, it would be great. At least she wouldn't be at a complete disadvantage when she encountered other God Emperors. 3 days later, Lin Muyu broke through again and stepped into the 39th Grotto Heaven Realm. On the 8th of June, the Blackstone Empire's Gale Legion was defeated. The Celestial Empire's 700,000-strong army marched straight in and pounced on the Blackstone Empire's capital, Thousand Mountain City. The war in the Celestial Pole continent was already in full swing. Tianji City, Imperial Palace Hall. Bai Mingyuan squinted his eyes and placed his palm on the armrest of the throne. The officials below the steps all had a solemn expression. At this moment, no one dared to speak for fear of saying something wrong. The Gale Legion was defeated. It's a good defeat. Bai Mingyuan suddenly stood up, and his gaze was slightly savage as he laughed. This kid, Qinyu, is really formidable. Even Feng Yang isn't a match for him. The Darkstone Empire is about to be finished. Are all of you satisfied now? Once the Blackstone Empire is destroyed by the Celestial Empire, Chen Yu's next target will be us. He suddenly stomped his feet and the hall instantly started buzzing and trembling. Bai Mingyuan looked at the officials with a face full of anger and said, What's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything? In the crowd, General Zhang Cheng slowly walked out with his hand on the hilt of his sword and said, Your Majesty, according to what I know, Tianju's sect dispatched nearly 10,000 cultivators. Among them, there are many experts above the sacred martial warrior level helping them in the battle. That's how they managed to defeat the Celestial Empire. Moreover, the Gale Legion led by Feng Yang was originally weaker than the Celestial Empire. Old General, you're right. Bai Mingyuan's expression was slightly respectful. After all, Zhang Cheng was a sacred martial god, the treasure of the entire empire. Bai Mingyuan slowly walked back to the throne and sat down. He said, How long can Thousand Mountain City last? Zhang Cheng said, Thousand Mountain City is the capital of the Blackstone Empire, but it's also the nest of the Thunderblaze sect. I think Longxi won't just sit back and watch. Once the Thunderblaze sect takes action, the tomes in their hands will be used. It's hard to say who will win, but at least Thousand Mountain City will be able to defend for 2 or 3 months. Moreover, if the Blackstone Empire is willing, they can recruit mercenaries from all over the country to help the Emperor. The Celestial Empire's troops in the territory of the Blackstone Empire are so long that they won't have it easy. Old General, do you think we should launch a surprise attack on the Celestial Empire now? Bai Mingyuan squinted his eyes. It's time to let that brat, Qinyu, know how powerful he is. Zhang Qing smiled. Your Majesty, you can't underestimate Qinyu. He's a schemer, and he's definitely not as simple as you think. Moreover, our army's battle in the Broken Cauldron realm has dragged on for too long. It's said that Marshal Bai Minghuan's food supply is very tight. We're already in deep trouble in the Broken Cauldron realm. If we fight with the Celestial Empire again, I'm afraid we won't even be able to protect ourselves in the end. Then what should we do? Bai Mingyuan was a little angry. Old General, do you have any ideas? Yes. Zhang Qing sneered. It said that the Qin queen of the Qin Empire, Lin Muyu, met Qin Yu once. The two of them must have some secret plan to attack the Tianji Empire. But we all know that both of them have ulterior motives and wild ambitions. In my opinion, why don't we beat them at their own game? How do we beat them at their own game? The smoother our battle in the Broken Cauldron realm, the more likely it is that Qin Yu will attack us. But if our battle doesn't go well, Qin Yu will definitely think that we might give up on the Broken Cauldron realm and withdraw our troops. Why don't Your Majesty send an order for Marshal Bai Minghuan's troops to withdraw from Tongtian province and move to 8 Desolation province from the sea to meet up with Long Ji's troops to prevent us from being attacked from both sides. Once this news reaches Qin Yu's ears, he will think that we might increase our troops in the Broken Cauldron realm and attack the Blackstone Empire with all his might. We can then take advantage of this and attack the Celestial Empire's scorching cold city directly. Then we can't do anything now? No, we can. We can help the Blackstone Empire appropriately. Oh? What appropriate way? Your Majesty, as you know, half a month ago, 2 of the Blackstone Empire's top 10 mercenary corps were surrounded by us on the mountain at the border. At this time, we might as well open this gap and send our cavalry to expel these 2 mercenary corps to attack the Celestial Empire's army. This way, we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. On one hand, we can help the Blackstone Empire greatly, and on the other hand, we can weaken the Celestial Empire's army. Ha! Bai Mingyuan laughed loudly. Old General Zhang Qing is indeed astute and astute. I can't help but admire you. All right, let's follow your plan of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. In addition, is the Tianji sect willing to send troops? An attendant said, Your Majesty, sect leader Sikong Ming has already rejected our requests 3 times. He said that unless there are enemies invading our Tianji Empire's land, the Tianji sect will not participate in any war. This stubborn old man, Bai Mingyuan frowned. Let him be. We can't care so much anymore. Is there any news from the Forest of No Return? How is the demonic spirit clan? Zhang Cheng said, the demon emperor Nu Sha has been rather active recently. She has mobilized the demonic spirit clan's army in the Forest of No Return. It seems like she has some ulterior motives. We have to be on guard. Yes. In the Western God realm, outside the Divine Palace, hundreds of angel-level powerhouses stood densely packed together. These powerhouses had come from various star regions, and they were all waiting for their ruler, Claude's words. Amidst the buzzing sound, Claude walked out of the shrine with his entire body wrapped in the chaotic light source energy. He looked at the crowd indifferently. Greetings, ruler. Rise. Claude smiled faintly. The celestial pole continent, which is known as the Western Divine Realm's cradle of geniuses, is in trouble. I believe everyone is aware of this. This time, we have gathered everyone here to exile all of you. We will let you travel to the Celestial Pole Continent from another plane and help the people of the Celestial Pole Continent win the war quickly. Yes. No one had any doubts. Chapter 887. On the 11th of June, at noon, the scorching sun shone on the dense forest to the north of the Luo River estuary fortress. There were herds of muntjac deer in the forest, badgers running around, and pythons as thick as the mouth of a bowl slithered along the edge of the stream. This forest was classified as a forbidden area by the eastern capital. There were soldiers guarding the perimeter. Hunters and farmers were not allowed to enter, in case they were hurt by the spiritual beasts in the forest. However, there was still a group of people in the forest. They were dressed in the summer military uniforms of the empire. Their armors were taken off and hung on the backs of horses. Wei Chou and Bai Yin were guarding this place with nearly 100 guards of the Longdan army camp. Lin Muyu was cultivating in the forest. After several days of cultivation, his strength had broken through again. This time, he was going to break through the second sky of the God King realm and reach the 40th Grotto Heaven realm. Under a towering ancient tree, Lin Muyu's eyes were tightly shut. His entire body was emitting a faint golden light. He was sitting on the ground, rippling with the power of the golden elephant wheel. Using the formless elephant's secret art to promote his cultivation had become one of his instincts. Sparks were bursting in the air. It looked normal, but in fact, the power in Lin Muyu's body was very shocking. Waves of god waves were rushing towards the hidden gate. As long as he broke through this hidden gate, he would be among the god state experts who were above the 40th grotto heaven realm. However, it was already very difficult for those who had the supremacy to cultivate. Even during the recovery period, it was quite difficult. The veins on his face were bulging and he was sweating. The grass around him had evaporated and turned into a pile of withered grass. The pythons and poisonous snakes that were entrenched in the distance, trying to sneak up on him, felt an inexplicable fear. They all screamed and left. In their eyes, Lin Muyu's strength had completely exceeded the scope of a human being's ability. Pa 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 pa. The sound of the power explosion became more and more frequent. When it finally died out, Lin Muyu's body trembled slightly. Finally, he had broken through successfully. In his Yi, a golden cloud was slowly rotating. This was the symbol of the new ability he had obtained after stepping into the 40th grotto heaven realm, strategy. The divine stratagem was the ability to see through other people's minds. It was no different from the legendary mind-reading ability, or even better. The scope of the divine stratagem was wider. Mind-reading was originally something that hurt others and oneself. Spying on others made Lin Muyu feel a little contemptuous. He gritted his teeth and forcefully pushed the newly formed floating cloud into the depths of his EC. He did not want to have this ability. However, when all the golden clouds had sunk into the E could no longer remain calm. In the blink of an eye, waves surged and waves surged. Rays of golden energy pierced through the surface of the sea and shot into the sky. What's going on? Lin Muyu was surprised. In the sky, a crack tore open. It was the spiritual scholar and the Beeman King who was in a daze followed behind him. The spiritual scholar gently waved his paper fan and smiled. Successor, do you really not intend to obtain the power of divine strategy? This power of divine strategy is not something that ordinary people can have. It must be someone with outstanding talent and the right opportunity to awaken the power of divine strategy. This subordinate has seen the Pantheon canon, and there are less than 10% of the people who have awakened the power of divine strategy. Successor, do you really not want it? I don't want it. Lin Muyu shook her head. Prying into other people's minds will increase the burden on your own mind. Rather than that, it is better to be magnanimous, isn't it? Successor, you are wise. The spiritual scholar gently waved his paper fan and smiled. That is why Successor would rather give up the power of divine strategy. However, it is also a blessing. What blessing? Since ancient times, there were a few people who gave up the power of divine strategy. However, only 1 or 2 people obtained this blessing. After giving up the power of divine strategy, the power of divine strategy would hibernate in the depths of the E and form a barrier to prevent other people's spiritual power from invading. In other words, other god emperors would not be able to see into the successor's mind. This ability is called the anti-divine strategy power in the Pantheon canon. Now, Successor has obtained this ability. This is really worthy of celebration. I see. Lin Muyu smiled. This ability is not bad. It would not feel good to always be seen through by others. Yes, the spiritual scholar squinted his eyes and said, Successor, I used my divine power to examine you and found that your invisible elephant technique has improved a lot. I wonder how long more it will take for you to break through and step into the 3rd stage, 100 elephants demon slaying? I do not know either. However, there are already more than 70 elephant wheels in my E that can be formed at the same time. That will be soon. Please continue to cultivate diligently, Successor. Su Hao, why are you urging me so much? It is very simple. Scholar Ling cupped his fists respectfully and said, His Majesty the Sky Emperor asked me to assist the successor. Firstly, it is to ensure that the successor does not die. I am incompetent and my cultivation is low, so I can only rely on the successor to protect himself. Therefore, the only thing I can do is to assist the successor with all the secrets of the ancient books I have learned. His Majesty the Sky Emperor passed me the Pantheon Canon to assist the successor. As he spoke, the spiritual scholar gently opened his palm. Immediately, a golden scroll flipped rapidly in his palm. It was the legendary Pantheon Canon. It seemed that Fuxi had imparted many things. Although he was in the sky beyond heaven, Fuxi seemed to be more concerned about everything that happened in the Eastern Heaven realm than anyone else. However, at this moment, the Pantheon Canon suddenly shone brightly and the pages trembled. What's going on? Lin Muyu asked in shock. Scholar Ling raised his head to look at the sky in the west. He couldn't help but frown as he said, the Pantheon Canon seems to have sensed the fluctuations of the divine power of the Western divine realm. This is bad. Someone must have started to travel between planes again. Their target might be our shattered cauldron realm. Lin Muyu gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. Immediately, she controlled the power of heaven and earth around her and said sternly, "Has the Western divine realm gone mad? Isn't it enough to send 10 battle angels? Do they want to destroy us completely?" It seems so. The spiritual scholar stared at the energy fluctuation on the Pantheon Canon. Only when the Pantheon Canon no longer shone did he take a deep breath and say, "Oh no, there are a total of 324 energy fluctuations. More than 50 of them belong to people above the divine king level." Lin Muyu didn't say anything else. She stepped on a branch and flew to the periphery. She stood proudly in the air and said to Wei Chou and the others, "Let's go back immediately. Pass down the order to strengthen the defenses of all cities. In addition, urge the weapons department to forge more demonic heart arrows." As he spoke, he looked towards the south. According to the time, Shengguan Jingyue and Fengxi should have already reached the Dragon-Slaying Pass, right? Dragon-Slaying Pass. Summer was overflowing. Fengxi and the others took a small path and avoided the eyes of the Darkstone Empire's army. When they arrived outside the Dragon Slayer Pass, they saw the violet snowflower flag still fluttering on the pass, and the other was a slightly smaller battle angel flag. It seems that Marquis Tongnan hasn't betrayed the Empire. Fengxi smiled in relief. Shengguan Jingyue nodded, her beautiful face covered with sweat. Today's weather was unusually hot, so much so that she wanted to take off her long skirt. Only, the rest of the people here were all grown men. If she took off her clothes, it was hard to guarantee that these people would be able to control themselves. After all, after Lin Muyu came to power, she completely abolished the military concubine system. The soldiers of the Qin Empire, perhaps many of them hadn't touched a woman for many years. Halt! On the city wall, a general took up his bow and shot an arrow. Puchi! The arrow fell to the ground 2 meters in front of the hooves of Fengxi's warhorse. The general shouted, "Who goes there?" Fengxi took a Longdan army camp war flag from an attendant. On it was a large dragon-shaped insignia. He raised the war flag high and said loudly, "I am the commander of the rear army of the Longdan army camp, Fengxi. I have come to the Dragon-Slaying Pass on the orders of the Qin Emperor. Please immediately open and close it." "Your Excellency Fengxi?" The general was startled and said, "Your Excellency, please wait a moment. This subordinate will go and report to the Marquis. Please hurry." "Yes." In the mansion within the pass, Xin, Su Jiantao, Xiang Yu and the others gathered together. After receiving the report, Su Jiantao had an awkward expression and said, "Sure enough, what should come has come. Her Highness has actually sent Fengxi to the Dragon-Slaying Pass. It seems that our news has already spread to the eastern capital. Your Excellency Xin, what do you think?" "The Her Highness you were talking about, is it Lin Muyu?" Xin said softly. When she spat out the 3 words Lin Muyu, her heart unexpectedly throbbed for no reason. It made her rather flustered, but she couldn't say why it was like this. "It is precisely the Qin Emperor, Lin Muyu. He is my sovereign king." Su Jiantao said, "According to the original agreement, Your Excellency Xin will help me guard the Dragon-Slaying Pass. However, this city still belongs to the Qin Empire. I have no reason to refuse Fengxi's entry into the city, so, Your Excellency Xin, What do you think? Xin closed her eyes and nodded. Who you receive is your business. You are the master of the dragon-slaying pass. I and the Xin army are merely guests. Good. Many thanks for your Excellency Xin's understanding. Come, invite His Excellency Fengxi to enter the pass and directly bring him to the meeting hall. Yes. Not long after, the sound of galloping horses could be heard from the outside. Fengxi was not the only one who had entered the meeting hall. A beautiful woman had also arrived. It was Shangguan Jingyue. When Shangguan Jingyue entered the meeting hall, she immediately saw Xiyin, who was wearing the battle angel's attire. She could not help but tremble and let out a cry. She stared at Xiyin in a daze. She looked exactly the same. Her voice and smile were exactly the same as when Qin Yin had died in the Crimson Abyss. What's wrong, Excellency Shangguan? Xiang Yu asked with a smile. Shangguan Jingyue didn't care about overstepping her authority. She slowly walked forward until she was less than 2 meters away from Xin. She stared blankly at her exquisite face and said, "Is it really you? Is it really you? Your Highness." At the side, Terilyn couldn't help but laugh. Another one who has mistaken me for someone else. Xin didn't open her eyes. She gently raised the corner of her mouth. "Or you? Do you know me?" "I am Jingyue." Shangguan Jingyue's body trembled slightly. She said, "Your Highness Yin, I am the Excellency Shangguan Jingyue who is guarding by your side. Can't you recognize my voice?" "Guys, what happened to your eyes?" "I'm fine. Moreover, I'm not Qin Yin." Xin smiled. "Call me Xin. I come from the Western Divine Realm. I am the younger sister of Her Excellency Shi Yan. I am the captain of the Battle Angel team." But Shangguan Jingyue still wanted to say something. However, Fengxi interrupted her. He cupped his fists and said, "General Fengxi pays his respects to Duke Yu and Tuarhyun. Excellency Fengxi, you may rise." Fengxi straightened his body. His eyes were like torches. "Marquis Zongnan, why did you cut off communications with the eastern capital?" Chapter 888. As a soldier of the Empire, Fengxi asked straightforwardly. Su Jiantao stood up and answered straightforwardly, because it's hard to explain in a few words. "Is this reason enough?" Fengxi bluntly walked to the side, sat down at an empty table and said, "Then, this general will listen to why it's hard to explain in a few words. This time, this envoy to Dragon-slaying Pass is under His Highness's order. As the saying goes, the mission must be accomplished. Please forgive this general for overstepping my authority." Su Jiantao nodded. "Brother Fengxi, we are brothers who have eaten in the same pot. I won't hide it from you. Currently, Dragon-slaying Pass is not only guarded by me, but also by Lord Xin's Xin Corps. If I remember correctly, the Angel Corps is helping the Celestial Pole Continent, right?" Fengxi narrowed his eyes and said, "A battle angel called Dora not only killed the Marquis of Tranquil Sea, Yao Yuan, but also killed the Duke of North, Luo Exin. You should have heard of this matter, but why is it now?" "As you can see, Lord Xin is different from Dora." Su Jiantao clenched his teeth and said, "She may be Her Highness Qin Yin, but I can't remember for the time being." Fengxi also saw Xin's appearance, and naturally knew that she looked too much like Qin Yin. But resemblance was resemblance, and couldn't be discussed together, and said, "Even so, it's not a reason for you to refuse to interact with the Eastern capital. I'm worried that Lord Xin's news will disturb His Highness Qin Wang's sense of propriety," Su Jiantao said indifferently. "Ah." Fengxi was surprised. Shangguan Jingyue also pursed her red lips, but didn't say anything. Su Jiantao continued, "His Highness, the Prince of Qin, has been waiting for her for a full 6 years. 6 years, and he has never seen her again. I can understand the pain of wanting to see her but not being able to. We all feel that His Highness, the Prince of Qin, is fighting side by side with us, but in reality he has been lonely in the depths of his heart for 6 years. If we let him know that a person who closely resembles Her Highness Yin is in the Dragon-slaying Pass, would he still be able to remain calm and defend the eastern capital?" Fengxi remained silent, unable to refute. Su Jiantao waved his hand and said, taking 10,000 steps back, Dragon-slaying pass really does need Lord Xin's strength. Fengxi, it's not like you don't know that Lanyan City's treasury has been almost completely consumed by this war. The majority of the magicite cannons forged by the weapons department have been sent to the Lingdong, Dubhe, and Qihai provinces. I, Su Jiantao, have been allocated less than 50,000 magicite cannons, which were nearly used up in the Battle of Tsangnan province. Right now, I don't even have 10,000 magicite cannons on hand. How am I going to resist the 200,000 troops of the Blackstone Empire? Su Jiantao pressed his hand on the table, his palms slightly trembling as he said, I, Su Jiantao, am only a mortal. I also fear death. The majority of the dragon knights of the Blackstone Empire are at the god realm, and Bailey Qin is even a god emperor with exceedingly powerful strength. Do you really want me, Su Jiantao, to resist a god emperor with my mortal body? I need the help of Xin and the Xin Corps, otherwise, I, Su Jiantao, will not be regretted even if I die, but the common people of Lingdong cannot escape the Blackstone Empire's slaughter and trampling. Do you understand all this? Fengxi was silent for a few seconds, then said in a low voice, Martin, you've worked hard, it's not hard at all. Su Jiantao glanced at him, as long as I can live with dignity, no matter what, it's not hard at all. The dragon-slaying pass is facing the threat of 200,000 troops of the Blackstone Empire, and war may break out every day. And the eastern capital is not much better. If Bai Minghuan is unable to take down the heaven-reaching gorge, he will definitely think of a way to seize the eastern capital's winter frost city. Your Highness will be even more miserable. I, Su Jiantao, do not want your Highness to be distracted, so I have cut off all correspondence with the eastern capital. If the dragon-slaying pass falls, I, Su Jiantao, will definitely have already died for my country. Fengxi was silent. Jianghu sneered, since your Highness you sent Lord Fengxi to the dragon-slaying pass, this means that someone in the eastern capital must have slandered you. Isn't that right, Lord Fengxi? Slandered? Fengxi couldn't help but smile. Lord Yu, may I ask where your 70,000 Shangyang City garrison army is? Right behind the dragon-slaying pass. If this one remembers correctly, from the Blue Wind Sea battle to the Battle of the Luo River Estuary, and then to the Battle of the Southern Ridge, these 70,000 Shangyang City garrison army still remained 70,000 without a single casualty. Lord Yu truly leads his troops well. Fengxi sneered. His pair of eyes stared at Jianghu with a threatening gaze. The meaning behind his words couldn't be any clearer. Jianghu was afraid of battle and had never truly crossed swords with a strong enemy. To put it nicely, he was conserving his strength, but to put it bluntly, he was plotting a rebellion. Fengxi, what do you mean by that? Jianghu faintly smiled. I don't mean anything. Lord Yu knows best in his heart. Fengxi stood up and said, since the matter has been clarified, this general will immediately return to the eastern capital to report everything to your Highness. Of course, I will not mention Xin's appearance. Su Jiantao stood up. Fengxi, rest for a night. Eat your fill before you leave. No need. Fengxi shook his head and smiled bitterly. His Highness has been waiting for my news every day. I can't wait to grow wings and fly back to the eastern capital. Su Jiantao, you must guard the dragon-slaying pass well. Don't distract His Highness any longer. He is already too tired. Yes, I know. Don't worry. Xin indifferently raised her head. Feeling the footsteps of Fengxi and Shangguan Jinyue leaving, she suddenly felt as if she had lost something in her heart. What's wrong, Xin? Terilyn asked. Nothing. She wasn't willing to say it. Her mind was in extreme pain and was about to become a mess. At this moment, she even hated herself for not remembering everything here. If everything was fake, why did she feel like she had met this place before? In the eastern heaven, above many spiritual mountains, lightning flickered. The crackling electric net formed a barrier that almost enveloped the entire sky above the eastern heaven realm. In the sky, a figure was faintly discernible. It was the 7 luminaries demon emperor who was holding the Pangu axe. He constantly used the power of the Pangu axe to strengthen the barrier while closing his eyes. His eyelids were twitching rapidly. "What's wrong, Demon Emperor?" At the side, Qing Ping and Sun Feng, the 298 Heavenly Path God Emperors, were quietly waiting. They had already sensed the restlessness of the 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor. Another god has disappeared from the list of the Western Divine Realm. The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor closed his eyes and said with an ashen face, "Bastard Claude, he wants to send people to the Shattered Cauldron Realm again. Does he really want to kill you so badly?" Sun Feng frowned. "You has the sovereign godhead. Any god would covet it. Claude's desire for this sovereign godhead must be extraordinarily strong. The more gods the Western Divine Realm sends to the celestial pole continent, the more it shows Claude's desire for power. Demon Emperor, we should also take action. There is no star cave in the eastern heaven." The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor opened his eyes. His deep eyes were filled with anger. "There is only one way for us to banish gods, and that is to seize their godhead and remove their names from the Eastern Divine Realm. Just like what happened to Ouyang Yen in the past. Even if I send the 2 of you to the Shattered Cauldron Realm, you can only fight a god emperor like Xikong Ming with the identity of a crippled god as long as it doesn't violate the Divine Pact. Are you confident?" Xikong Ming. Qing Ping puffed out her full chest and said with a smile, "If I remove my godhead, I only have less than 40% chance of winning against Xikong Ming. After all, without the divine power of the godhead, my strength will be greatly weakened. But if I violate the Divine Pact and order you to descend to the Shattered Cauldron Realm, Xiao will lose her cultivation." The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor gritted his teeth and said, "She has just stepped into the 99th level of paradise not long ago. I can't let all of her efforts go to waste. Then what should we do now? We can't just watch as the gods of the Western Divine Realm descend from the sky and kill everyone in the Shattered Cauldron Realm. The Shattered Cauldron Realm is the territory of the Eastern Heaven. Moreover, you and Qinin are also there, Qinin." The fierce eyes of the 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor flashed with a hint of gentleness. He said, "I don't know when Yu's little girlfriend will awaken from the heavenly law reincarnation. Only when she awakens can she truly help you. Otherwise, she will still be Xin, still a person of the Western Divine Realm. Sun Feng, check for me. Approximately how long will it take for the Banished Land to travel to the Shattered Cauldron Realm?" 1 day later. Sun Feng said without hesitation, "This subordinate has already checked. It happens to be 1 day later at this time. There's no other way. We can only ask for Xiao's help." The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor closed his eyes, and golden light instantly shone around him. Spiritual energy spread out, and he silently said in his heart, "Xiao, Xiao, are you there?" At this time, in the ancient desolate realm of gods, Xiao was flying through the air in a white robe. On the ground, divine bulls were galloping, and white dragons were soaring. The ancient desolate realm of gods was a godly realm that had yet to fully develop. It was filled with danger and mysteries. Suddenly, Xiao stopped. She heard the call of the 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor. What's wrong?" She slowly closed her eyes. The Western Divine Realm has exiled another 300 or so dimensional gods. They want to completely eradicate the Shattered Cauldron Realm. I have to help you. Moreover, there's only 1 day left. Have you found the other divine weapons? I've found one. Xiao looked at the long sword in her hand. The blade of this sword was clear and bright, and the body of the sword was engraved with ancient patterns, mountains, rivers, humans, animals, and so on. A faint aura of righteousness flowed from the sword into her arm, making people feel a sense of justice. The corners of Xiao's mouth raised slightly, and she said, "I found the Xinyuan sword." "That's great." The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor was overjoyed. "Think of a way to return the Xinyuan sword to me. If I can gather the god power of the Xinyuan sword and Pangu's axe, maybe I can condense a flame not for the Shattered Cauldron Realm and make Claude suffer the consequences of his own actions." "Flame not." Xiao bit her red lips. "If you really do that, it'll consume at least 10% of your cultivation. Cultivation cultivates the state of mind. It only consumes god power. Don't worry about me." quickly think of a way to return the Xianyuan sword. I will. You have to be careful too. Don't worry. Ziyao stood in an ancient fertile field. The Xianyuan sword in her hand trembled slightly. It was difficult for her to make this decision. In order to help the Shattered Cauldron realm, there seemed to be nothing the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor wouldn't do. But in the end, she still had to help him. Chapter 889. In the vast heavens, countless stars twinkled in the night sky. Every star corresponded to a spiritual mountain in the divine realm. In the sky, a crescent moon shone on the blood clouds formed by the 9 heavens' divine lightning. Buzz! Suddenly, an azure blue light flickered in the sky. Immediately after, a spiraling energy pierced out from the alternate space. It's here. It's a message from Lord Ziyao. I'll go get it. Sun Feng leaped over, his body turning into a spiritual brilliance that lingered around the spiraling energy. Suddenly, rumbling flames exploded behind him, extending for dozens of miles. Finally, the flames were abruptly extinguished. After the light dissipated, Sun Feng was holding a resplendent longsword with both hands. With a face full of joy, he said, "Is this the legendary Xianyuan sword?" He respectfully held the long sword and flew into the array net of the 9 heavens' divine lightning. He said, "Demon Emperor, the item is here." The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor nodded. He held the Pangu axe in his left hand and the Xianyuan sword in his right hand. Suddenly, a vast power surged into his body, neutralizing the violent feeling brought by the Pangu axe. The Xianyuan sword was a sword of the divine path. It contained a vast righteousness and was the symbol of the ancient civilization and the divine path. Naturally, it was very different. "It's done." The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor's voice became a little excited. He said, "Qing Ping, help me lock onto the Shattered Cauldron realm and the Celestial Pole continent. I want the Western Divine Realm to suffer for what they've sown." "Yes, Demon Emperor." Qing Ping shouted and parted the clouds in front of her. Suddenly, an azure blue planet appeared in front of her. However, one could see with the naked eye that the planet was actually divided into 2 halves. There was a very obvious gap, just like an apple being cut in half. Air currents floated on the surface of the planet, protecting all the living things on the continent. What a beautiful Shattered Cauldron realm! Qing Ping couldn't help but feel a little dazed. "How much longer until the Wheel of Time calibrates the Shattered Cauldron realm?" asked the Demon Emperor. "In the time it takes for a joss stick to burn, Demon Emperor, you can already circulate your powers." "All right." The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor stepped on the 9 heavens' divine thunder barrier. With the Pangu axe in his left hand and the Xianyuan sword in his right, he suddenly shouted and gathered all of his power. Immediately, the 2 divine weapons were controlled by him, causing electric currents to crackle. The Demon Emperor looked at the Shattered Cauldron world's planar star with his torch-like eyes and shouted, "All the flames of heaven and earth, heed my command." Buzz, buzz, buzz. In the faraway illusion, the surface of the Shattered Cauldron realm's stars slowly condensed into wisps of invisible flames. These flames gathered together as if they had a mind of their own, forming a fiery barrier. This was the flame barrier that the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor and Ziyao had mentioned. This was an armor of flames that covered the entire plane. The color of the flame barrier became more intense, and its power became more and more vigorous. The 2 divine weapons in the hands of the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor trembled violently. Their power was being rapidly evaporated and absorbed. The flame barrier formed by the power of the 2 divine weapons and the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor, one could imagine how powerful its defense was. The time it took for a joss stick to burn passed very quickly. "It's here!" Sun Feng suddenly shouted. As the God Emperor of the 98 heavens, he actually couldn't remain calm. His emotions were fluctuating. Such a scene was probably something that many gods would never see in their lifetime. In the entire world, perhaps only the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor had the cultivation to control 2 divine weapons at the same time and set up such an unprecedented ambush. Swish, swish, swish. Outside the Shattered Cauldron Realm's star, streams of light rapidly appeared and rushed over. Each stream of light represented an angel from the Western Heaven Realm. They flew towards the Shattered Cauldron Realm in a dense mass. Once they entered the atmosphere, they would become the death gods of the entire Shattered Cauldron Realm. But this time, they couldn't reach the Shattered Cauldron Realm. The first stream of light collided with the flame barrier. Instantly, a monstrous flame surged out, and the stream of light turned into dust in the universe. Following that, the second, third, fourth, and more came. The sounds of explosions rang out incessantly. This scene was like moths flying into a flame. They were unable to change their trajectory as they were shuttling through space. One by one, they collided with the flame barrier like moths flying into a flame and turned into dust in the universe. The entire flame barrier was trembling violently. Waves of flame rippled nonstop. While killing these gods, it would also cause a huge impact on the flame barrier. After all, divine power was also conserved. Oh my God! Qing Ping was dumbfounded as she watched. Sun Feng, on the other hand, clenched his fists tightly. He was counting. At least 200 angels had been turned into ashes by the flame barrier, and more were coming. The 7 luminaries' demon emperor's body was faintly glowing with golden light. He was still holding on with the Pangu axe and Xianyuan sword in his hands. He gritted his teeth and held on bitterly. He couldn't let any of the angels descend into the Shattered Cauldron Realm. Otherwise, it would be big trouble for Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. However, the flame barrier's power was still weakening. Finally, a dozen or so angels crashed through the flame barrier and fell into the Shattered Cauldron Realm's atmosphere. Hua! The flame barrier finally shattered. The 7 Brilliance Demon Monarch took a few steps backward in the air. His face was covered in sweat. He could not help but drop to his knees on the 9 Heavens thunderous barrier while panting heavily. What he had done had greatly exceeded his capabilities. As a matter of fact, he was probably the only person who could kill so many angels from such a great distance. What's the result? He raised his head and asked. Sun Feng was overjoyed. Only a dozen or so angels escaped. Don't worry, Demon Emperor. With Yu's ability, he definitely won't be stumped by a dozen or so angels. You've already helped you a lot this time. That's good. Demon Emperor. Qing Ping looked at the 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor and suddenly froze. Tears welled up in her eyes. What's wrong, Qing Ping? The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor was a little surprised. Look at yourself, ah? The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor quickly transformed into a mirror image. He couldn't help but be stunned when he saw himself in the mirror. After using the 2 divine weapons to activate the flame barrier, a strand of white hair had appeared on his temples. Am I aging? I'm fine, he said softly. Qing Ping was scared to tears. How can a god emperor age? How can a god emperor age? Demon Emperor, don't ever use the flame barrier again. Got it? You're really troublesome. The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor smiled faintly and said, Sun Feng, go and gather our celestial race army. What is Demon Emperor going to do? Do what? The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor sneered. Since Claude likes to stir up trouble so much, let him have a taste of his own medicine. The Western Divine Realm has lost so many god emperors, god kings, and godly venerables in an instant. Their strength is lacking. If not now, then when? Pass down my orders. Gather 50,000 gods of East Heaven and set off in 2 hours to attack the eastern border of the Western Divine Realm. Attack as far as you can. If possible, it's best to attack the root of the problem. Get rid of that idiot Claude and replace him. Yes. The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor panted heavily. He looked down at the Xianyuan sword in his hand and said to himself, Your aura is very similar to Yu's. Forget it. After I use you to attack the Western Divine Realm, I'll send you to you by express delivery. Bastard! Bastard! In the Western Divine Realm, rays of light god power hit the stone pillars. In the blink of an eye, a side hall was turned into dust. Claude was shrouded in a light curtain. His face was full of anger. But Why is the 7 luminaries demon emperor able to see through the people of the Western Divine Realm? What is that barrier he opened? The entire Western Divine Realm was shocked by the loss of more than 300 angels in an instant. As the ruler, Claude had an unshirkable responsibility for this matter. Once the major families started to blame him, his days would probably be very difficult. Shi Yen and Eva followed behind him. They had never seen Claude break down like this. It seemed that this blow was too big for Claude. "Ruler," Shi Yen called out softly. "What?" Claude turned back to look at her. "I'm afraid that the army of the Eastern Divine Realm will arrive soon." Shi Yen said, "The 7 luminaries demon emperor has never been one to suffer losses. This time, after seeing through our intentions, he will definitely launch an invasion. The war of the gods will once again descend upon the Western Divine Realm. I know, this is only a matter of time." Claude's voice was very cold. "Shi Yen, Eva, send my divine edict to the major families of the Western Divine Realm, ordering them to do their best to defend the eastern border. This war of the gods will be commanded by the 2 of you. It must be a head-on attack, and all the armies of the eastern heaven must be beaten back. But ruler, Terralyn, Lake, and the other battle angels haven't returned yet. This subordinate is worried that the Light Clan and the other families won't fully help the temple. If they refuse to send troops, what should we do?" Claude took a deep breath and said, "Tell them that Terralyn, Lake, and Zhou Shimin will soon return from their training. Tell them not to worry and go do it. If they don't send troops, I will punish them." Shattered Cauldron Realm, the eastern capital, Winter Frost City. There was a faint fiery red color in the sky. Ripples of fire spread out continuously, as though meteorites were smashing into Tian Chen's enchantment. At the same time, every ripple of fire signified the disappearance of a strand of divine power. Outside the hall, Lin Mu, Scholar Ling, Chu Yao, and the others looked up at the stars, their faces full of horror. "What is that?" Chu Yao asked softly. She was even a little afraid. After all, she hadn't stepped into the divine realm, and she couldn't even see through divine power. How could she not be afraid when she saw this kind of heavenly power? "It's okay." Lin Mu held her hand and said, "It seems, the demon emperor is helping us again. Besides him, no one else has such great magical power." "Yes," Scholar Ling nodded and said, "After His Majesty the Celestial Emperor ascended to the heavens beyond heaven, this new master of the Eastern Heaven is not simple." Chapter 890. June 15th, outside Twilight Rain City, Longji Army Camp. Near noon, Fong Lan, dressed in a commander's armor, rode his horse through the camp. Suddenly, he heard a burst of wailing and crying. He immediately stopped his horse and asked, "What's wrong?" "Yes, the casualty camp," a guard said. "Let's go, follow me to take a look." "Yes." A group of people quickly turned around and entered the casualty camp. When Fong Lan got off his horse, he saw soldiers covered with ulcers howling in pain. They seemed to be in great pain. Some of them were already lying on the ground, unable to move. All the beds in the casualty camp had been used up, so most of the patients could only lie on the ground. "What's going on? Call the medical officer over." "Yes." Not long after, a middle-aged medical officer rushed over and knelt on the ground. "Greetings, Commander." "Get up and answer me. What's going on here?" Reporting to Commander, "It's a plague called Lycia. A few days ago, a group of refugees came from Tong Yun Pass. Among them, there were some beautiful women who were left in our camp. But no one knew that they were infected. So many soldiers in the army were infected. Is there a way to cure them?" Fong Lan asked indifferently. "Not yet." The medical officer frowned and said, "All of our medical officers are helpless. This plague is very strange. Almost all of the herbs are unable to fight against this poison. Commander, this is the Qin army of Tong Yun Pass taking revenge on us. They purposely chased the infected refugees back to Mu City so that they could defeat our Longji Corps without shedding a single drop of blood. They must be punished." "A bunch of bastards." Fong Lan gritted his teeth and said, "Then what do we do now?" How can we stop this plague? The medical officer seemed to be a little afraid and kept his mouth shut. Just say it. Wuxia is transmitted through the breath and blood. There are two ways to stop it. One is to burn it. The other is to bury it alive. We must not use swords to kill the patients. Otherwise, it will be transmitted through swords. Transmitted through the blood? Fong Lan frowned and remained silent. Right at this moment, a figure descended from the sky. It was Dora, who was holding onto the Deg's spear. She had always stayed in the army and was now wearing the 4-star rank of deputy commander on her shoulder. It was because of her assistance that the Longji army was able to seize the Cloud province. Therefore, Fong Lan had specially sent a letter back to the Empire to ask for merits for her. Currently, Dora was no longer just a battle angel. She was also the deputy commander of the Longji army who had tens of thousands of troops in her hands. This made her very satisfied. Only authority and slaughter could satisfy a black-winged battle angel. Miss Dora, did you hear everything? Fong Lan asked. Yes. Dora landed on the ground and propped his spear on the ground, saying, Since the Qin army has sent the evil plague to our army, why don't we beat them at their own game and return the plague to them? How do we send them back? Fong Lan was stunned. Do we have to wave a whip and chase them back to Tongyun Pass? How troublesome would that be? Dora puffed out her full chest and smiled proudly. Actually, there's an even simpler way. Please enlighten us, Miss Dora. Fong Lan said respectfully. At this time, Lin Tongtian had also brought a few dragon knights into the casualty camp. He was also attracted by the tragic cries. Greetings, Commander. No need to be so polite, Dragon Knight Lin Tongtian. Fong Lan nodded in greeting, then looked at Dora and said, Miss Dora, please tell us, what should we do? Dora's eyes flashed coldly as she said, Send all the infected soldiers to the Daojiang River and kill them. Then, throw the knives and corpses into the Daojiang River. It's summer now, and the river is flowing south. A few hundred miles downstream is the Cloud Gate. The 50,000 elites led by Feng Jixing are guarding the Cloud Gate. Once these corpses flow along the river and send the plague to the Cloud Gate, do you think Feng Jixing's troops can still guard the Cloud Gate? Fong Lan was stunned. Lin Tongtian was stunned. A trace of anger flashed across his face as he said, Miss Dora, you must not do this. Why not, Lord Lin Tongtian? First, if we send the plague into the Daojiang River, the water of the Daojiang River will spread the plague all the way. The civilians living on both sides of the Daojiang River will suffer. If this spreads, how many millions of people will be infected? Second, our army has just established a foothold in the Cloud Gate province. By right, we should make announcements to appease the people and win their hearts. If we do this now, will the people of the Qin Empire be loyal to us? Since we want to be the masters of the Shattered Cauldron realm, we should not do such a heartless thing. Lord Lin Tongtian makes it sound so simple. Dora sneered, Our army has been in Muyu City for so many days, and we have not done anything to the people. But have they been loyal? In half a month, the number of Longji army soldiers and wolf soldiers that died under the attacks of the refugees numbered more than 100. This was the best proof. Furthermore, there were 50,000 steel cavalry and close to 50,000 steel blade army remnants as well as 50,000 new soldiers stationed in the Cloud Gate. Especially the 50,000 steel cavalry, they were all elites that Feng Jixing had selected from the various armies of the empire. The Imperial Guards and the elite steel cavalry of the Long Dan Battalion were all there. Was it wrong to kill many birds with one stone? Lord Lin Tongtian wants to sacrifice the lives of 50,000 warriors of the Tianji Empire in exchange for the victory of defeating Feng Jixing? Lin Tongtian gritted his teeth and nodded without saying a word. Obviously, Fong Lan and Dora were the same kind of people. Kindness does not lead an army. Fong Lan naturally understood the importance of using unscrupulous means. She nodded and said, Miss Dora's words are very reasonable. I agree with you. Times have changed. We are isolated and helpless in Muyu City. We have to take extreme measures. I hope that Lord Dragon Knight Lin Tongtian can understand. Lin Tongtian looked at the soldiers in the camp and said, Are we really going to kill them all? This is something that we have no choice but to do. So be it. Lin Tongtian sighed. I'm only here to help the Tianji Dragon Riders. I shouldn't be interfering with military affairs. Let Commander Fong Lan and Deputy Commander Duo La decide. Thank you for your understanding, Lord Lin Tongtian. Fong Lan cupped her fists and signaled her subordinates to get ready. Inside the Cloud Gate, behind Yunzhong Pass, the sound of killing could be heard. Countless elite steel cavalry were training their tactics here. Other than the cavalry charging, Feng Jixing also ordered Zhang Wei and Luo Yu to train the infantry of the Steel Blade Army. They were to use the sword and shield weapons to train them to master the Chenkuan battle tactics. After all, this was Feng Jixing's style. But Feng Jixing did not know about the impending danger. He stood on the city wall and looked down at the soldiers who were training to charge. His face was full of worry. Your Highness, what's wrong? Beside him, the new commander of the Steel Blade Army, Qin Yong, asked. Nothing. Feng Jixing shook his head. Commander Qin Yong, how's the recruitment going? How's your selection going? I've already selected 50,000 young warriors. There are about 20,000 left. Do you want them, Your Highness? Yes, Feng Jixing rubbed his nose. After the battle at the Luo River estuary, there are not many left in the Imperial Guards. Now is the best time to replenish our forces. I want whatever you don't want. The more the better. Thank you, Your Highness. Qin Yong knelt on one knee. Feng Jixing was giving him the first pick of the new soldiers. He was thinking too highly of him. Get up. Feng Jixing's eyes flashed. We must strengthen our defenses. I feel that the Longji army is about to make a move. The war has not left us. Instead, it is getting closer. Is there any news from Tong Yun Pass? How is Princess Shi? Tong Yun Pass is very sturdy. They are defending it. They will watch over us and guard the two main exits. The Longji army can only move around in Yunzhong province. That's good. Keep in touch. Don't worry. We have already recruited close to 500 Warhawk scouts from Lanyan City. Every important letter will be delivered by more than 20 Warhawk scouts from different routes and heights. There won't be any mistakes. Okay. In the evening, a Warhawk scout landed lightly on the eagle's nest on the city wall. He quickly landed and rushed into the commander's residence. Urgent report. Urgent report. Feng Jixing, who was eating, put down his chopsticks and stood up. Come in. After the two Imperial Guards handed over their weapons, the Warhawk scout walked in and said respectfully, Your Highness Prince Exin, this subordinate just received the news from the brothers who were hiding in Muyu City. This afternoon, the Longji Corps killed nearly 10,000 soldiers and threw their corpses into the Rice River. These soldiers were all infected with the plague. It seems that the Longji Corps is planning to use the plague to defeat us. Is the news accurate? I guarantee it with my life. Zhang Wei, who was at the side of the table, slammed his palm on the table. The impact sent steamed buns flying. Damn that Tianji bastard. He is really ruthless. Does he want all of them to die from the plague? Feng Jixing closed his eyes in pain. Are there any other water sources besides the Rice River? No. Luo Yu said. Then dig up the underground water and use the water from the well. Feng Jixing said indifferently. Order the Spirit Fire Department to stop using the water from the Rice River. No one is allowed to use the water from the Rice River. In addition, the Spirit Fire Department will immediately send people to the west to collect the underground water from the villages 10 li away from the Rice River. Send war chariots to help transport the water. Luo Yu frowned. Your Highness, these corpses will float over soon. The Cloud Gate won't be able to stop them. What should we do? Should we send ships to collect the corpses and bury them? No need. The owner of the Rice River will eat these corpses. I am only worried that the water will be infected. Yes, I understand. Luo Yu smiled. The frost-armored horned dragons lived in the Cloud province of the Rice River. They had been starving for a long time. Now that there were corpses floating on the water, they would naturally become their food. However, what made Feng Jixing's heart turn cold was that Fong Lan was too ruthless. He actually gave the order to kill close to 10,000 soldiers. What kind of cruel and ruthless commander would do such a thing? Chapter 891. Phew! With a light breath, Lin Muyu woke up in the mountain. The cultivation just now was like a dream. She dreamed that she stepped into the sky and saw the person she wanted to see. Looking around her, she saw that the rocks under her feet had been crushed by the power of the invisible elephant spell, and the divine power in her body had become more abundant. 10,000 elephants, listen to my command. With a low shout, wheels flew up around her. In the blink of an eye, 100 elephant wheels gathered together, which was the symbol of the 100-elephant demon-slaying realm. Go! Her arm trembled slightly. She had to use her power, so she punched the mountain next to her. The earth trembled and the entire mountain first buzzed, then began to collapse. This simple punch had actually turned the huge mountain into a pile of rubble. Was this the power of a god? A faint smile appeared on Lin Muyu's face. His breathing became longer and longer, and as he breathed, waves of energy surged through his body, reaching a total of 49 stages. In a short month he had cultivated the formless elephant tactic, tempered his godhead, and even absorbed the 7 demonic beast king-grade demonic spirit stones that Sikong Yao had given him, allowing him to advance by leaps and bounds into the 49th stage of the heavenly dwelling realm. With this speed, there was probably no one else. But at this moment, Lin Muyu suddenly felt a sense of emptiness in her body, and she fell to her knees. Descendant! Scholar Ling, who was in the air, shouted. What's wrong with me? Lin Muyu looked at her trembling hands and said, I seem to have lost all my power. This is the backfire of the recovery period. Your body was originally unable to withstand such a strong divine power, but now that you have forcefully recovered to this realm, your body will feel uncomfortable. However, this won't last for too long. At most, it will only last for a day. This subordinate and the Beeman King will guard the successor here. Don't worry, the successor will only be able to completely control her current power after a day. In addition, the recovery period has already ended. It's over? Lin Muyu was a little disappointed. But 49-level Grotto Heavens was enough. Together with the power of the invisible elephant spell, she might be able to fight against an emperor god like Bai Minghuan. If they didn't try, no one could say for sure. Thus, he spread his arms and laid down on the grass and gravel. An unprecedented sense of comfort came from his body. At this moment he felt like a mortal without any worries. When he lost his power, his responsibilities also disappeared. Everything in this world had nothing to do with him. He fell into a deep sleep. By the time she opened her eyes again, it was already noon the next day. The surrounding heaven and earth's spiritual energy was continuously gathering into her body. The surging supreme divine force had already formed a river in her blood vessels. The energy was rapidly flowing into her body, and it also let Lin Muyu know that her holiday was over. Do. The sound of hooves could be heard from the foot of the mountain. A group of cavalrymen in white robes came up the mountain. They were the royal guards, and the person they were protecting was none other than Wei Chou. Your Highness, something has happened. Wei Chou flew over and said, the Tianji Empire has gathered at least 1,000 warships on the East Sea. I'm afraid the war is about to begin. It seems that Bai Minghuan plans to attack from the East Sea, bypassing the Luo River Estuary Fortress, and directly attack the eastern capital, Winter Frost City. Bypassing the Luo River Estuary? Yes, this subordinate thinks so. Did the Eagle Scouts find out the specific situation? Are they sure that their warships are full of soldiers? The Eagle Scouts dare not fly too close, or they will be easily killed by the Dragon Knights. So they can't see everything clearly. But why do you ask? Lin Muyu stood up, rubbed her slightly sore shoulders, and said, Bai Minghuan has already begun to put Gong Shangming in an important position. If Gong Shangming is the commander of this attack, it won't be so simple. What if their warships are just merchants, used as a distraction? If we mobilize the guards at the Luo River Estuary to protect the eastern capital, the Luo River Estuary will be breached, and the gateway to Ling Dong will be gone. Wei Chou felt a chill in his heart. No way? Using 1,000 ships as a decoy, isn't this a little too much? Gong Shangming is a strong opponent. For someone like him, as long as he can win, it's not too much to do anything. Lin Muyu began to pack and said, I'll get ready. Tonight, I'm going to spy on their fleet. You go and tell the guards at the Luo River estuary not to act rashly. Without my order, no one is allowed to leave their post. Wei Chou gently cupped his fists and then asked, Your Highness, are you really going to the East Sea by yourself? It's too dangerous. Bring the 4 masters of white leaves. No need. Lin Muyu smiled. The 4 masters of white leaves are guarding the Luo River estuary fortress. They are needed there more. I'll go alone. But Wei Chou still wanted to say something, but Ling Shuxing smiled and said, Duke Wei, don't worry. My successor's strength is no longer the same as before. I believe even the Beeman King is not my successor's match. Moreover, I have the divine book of the law of space here. Even if my successor encounters danger, she will be able to escape unscathed. All right then, you must be careful. Late at night, the waves on the East Sea were calm. This was a rare good weather. The 1-meter-tall waves constantly slapped against the ship, making the sound of the tide. It actually gave off a sense of tranquility. In the sky, a black figure slowly approached. It was like a black bat soaring above the sea. Moreover, there was no aura at all, making it impossible for people to capture it. Lin Muyu was wearing a set of black armor, and even her robe was black. This was the special attire of the Qin Empire for 500 people. It was very suitable. His gaze swept across the warships. There were nearly 100 warships in front of him, and each of them only had about 50 people. Moreover, most of them were merchants with weak auras. They were obviously not real warships. He flew past them and continued to investigate the ships at the back. The moonlight shone on the deck. It was actually densely packed with soldiers. All of them were leaning against the deck while hugging their weapons. Some of them were even snoring thunderously. How is this possible? Lin Muyu was secretly shocked. The warships at the front were fake, but the ones at the back were real. Could it be that the Flowing Spirit Army had split up? That's not right. The lights of the warships at the back were dimmer. Let's look again. He patiently flew past the sky. In the middle were 500 warships. Almost all of them were filled with the soldiers of the Flowing Spirit Army. There were about 70 to 80,000 soldiers. There were another 500 warships at the back. Lin Muyu was interested to see who were the people on the 500 warships. But just as he passed through the air, his spiritual mind was suddenly filled with all kinds of auras. There was a very dense interweaving of auras coming from the dim starlight on the sea in front of him. There were a lot of strong people there. He hurriedly circulated the spiritual pulse art to its peak state. When he flew across the sky, he saw a group of people in blood-red robes standing on a warship. They were silent and held weapons in their hands. Their gazes were indifferent as they looked forward. Many of them had faint dark force circulating around them. Some were true qi while others were battle qi. The strength of each one was different. The hundreds of people on the whole ship were all practitioners. The lowest cultivation was at the human realm. They were far from being comparable to ordinary soldiers. Lin Muyu frowned and carefully looked at the flag hanging on the bow of the ship. In addition to the flag of the Tianji Empire, there was also a blood-red flag with a golden robe pattern embroidered on it, just like the clothes worn by those people. The Blood Clothing Sect. A name jumped into Lin Muyu's mind. Lu Bai had mentioned this name before. There were a total of 5 saint sects in the Heaven Pole continent, including the Tianji sect, the Tianjue sect, and so on. There were also 7 king sects, including the Blood Clothing sect. In addition, there were 59 heaven sects and more than 3,000 earth sects. It was very complicated, but the appearance of the Blood Clothing sect shocked Lin Muyu. Could it be that the Tianji Empire had mobilized the forces of all the major sects to invade the Shattered Cauldron world? It seemed that it was true. This was the reality that Lin Muyu was unwilling to admit but had to face. The number of warships behind was getting denser. In addition to the Blood Clothing sect, he saw a new king sect, the Eternal Night Sect. The people of the Eternal Night Sect were all wearing black robes. Their strength could not be underestimated. He could even faintly perceive a few traces of the aura that belonged to gods. As for the experts with the king's fighting flame, there were countless, at least 200 of them. Perhaps, this was the real strength of the Tianji Empire. Unfortunately, Liu Bai and Si Kongyao were too concentrated on investigating the information in the Darkstone Empire, and they actually didn't notice that these king sects, heaven sects, and earth sects had turned out in full force. At this moment, Lin Muyu suddenly thought of something. There was a warship in front of them with a fluttering commander's flag. Yes, it was Bai Minghuan's warship. Swish! It moved with the wind and stuck to the edge of the warship like a falling leaf. The soldiers on the deck did not notice the appearance of Lin Muyu at all. When he stuck to the edge of the ship, he quickly opened the spiritual pulse technique and listened in the cabin. As expected, there was a faint smell of wine in the cabin. Someone was holding a banquet, and Bai Minghuan and a few other auras were all at the Immortal realm. It seemed that the leaders of the Eternal Night Sect and the Blood Clothing Sect were all here. I, Bai Minghuan, am very grateful that all the leaders have come here for the Empire. Come, let's have a drink. As long as we can conquer Winterfrost City, it will be a great achievement for all of you. The Tianji Empire will not let you down. Marshal, you are too kind. It was an old voice. It's our honor to serve the Empire. This time, our 2 kings sects, 11 heaven sects, and nearly 100 earth sects have gathered 100,000 people to form the Godly Cloak Army. I believe that we'll be invincible. How could a mere Winterfrost City possibly stand a chance against us? That is... Gong Shangming's voice came. Thank you for your trust, sect leader. As long as we can conquer the Shattered Cauldron Realm, the Blood Clothing Sect and the Eternal Night Sect can establish their own sects there. The Empire will also recognize your status as king sects. Then, I will thank Marshal and Military Advisor first. Chapter 892. What a pity! The leader of the Eternal Night Sect said, Lord Sikong Ming of the Celestial Ji Sect refused the Empire's order. None of the 40,000 disciples of the Celestial Ji Sect is willing to serve the Empire. What a pity! Sikong Ming. Bai Minghuan did not hide the anger in his voice at all as he said, a long journey tests a horse's stamina, and time reveals a man's heart. This time, I have seen everything clearly. Sikong Ming only wants his own fame and position. He does not worry about the survival of the Empire at all. Everyone, please rest assured. This time, His Majesty must have seen everything. He knows who is more loyal. Hi, you're right, General. Come, let's have another drink. Lin Muyu remained silent. She raised her head and looked into the distance. The vast sea was filled with numerous warships. The Divine Garment Army gathered by the Tianji Empire's major sects, heavenly sects, and earth sects was definitely a fatal blow to the Shattered Cauldron realm. She couldn't just sit back and watch them approach the Empire's territory. At this speed, they would arrive at the Blue Wind Harbor at noon tomorrow at the latest. Thinking up to this point, Lin Muyu could no longer remain calm. He released his grip on the deck and glided across the surface of the sea like a bird. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in the sky and activated his supreme god force. His eyes were instantly covered with a layer of golden light. This was the transformation of the divine form. Both his palms were facing the surface of the sea, and the power of the shapeless elephant surged out. Everything in the world, listen to my command. With a low roar, his power had already penetrated deep into the sea. This strike would borrow the power of the ocean from all the phenomena in the world. Borrow the power. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The seawater began to roar and spin. The seawater in the depths of the sea rapidly spun in all directions, quickly forming a huge whirlpool in the center. This was a powerful force. In an instant, a basin with a radius of tens of miles was created on the calm surface of the sea, and the basin was nearly 1,000 meters deep. Scatter! Lin Muyu shouted, and the invisible elephant art's divine power rippled out in all directions. Many of the people on the warships had already run out, and they were all dumbfounded by the strange phenomenon around them. Very quickly, they realized that they were sinking, and the result of sinking was a disaster, a tsunami. That's right, Lin Muyu wanted to borrow the power of the ocean to cause a catastrophe. It's Lin Muyu. On the ship, Bai Minghuan had already charged out with his sword. Seeing Lin Muyu in the air, he couldn't help but yell, "Everyone, follow me to kill this thief." From all directions, powerful and endless tsunamis had already surged over. A disaster was inevitable. The warships at the edge of the sea hung upside down and were engulfed by the tsunami in the blink of an eye. The sound of the huge waves soared into the sky, completely covering the shouts, cries, and roars in the sea. This was how the war of the gods was. Mortals were so weak and helpless, no different from ants. Swoosh, 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 beams of light flew up from the warships. Those who could fly would not just sit there and wait for death. At least 50 beams of light charged at Lin Muyu, led by Bai Minghuan. "Give me your life, Lin Muyu." It was Lei Wen's roar. He held the muddy fire blade and urged the dragon to attack like lightning. The muddy fire blade turned into a beam of flame. Lin Muyu's expression changed. This Lei Wen was Si Kongyao's uncle. She should have spared his life, but there was no time to think. Lei Wen was looking for death, and no one else could be blamed. Swoosh! The muddy fire saber slashed through thin air, but a powerful aura quickly condensed in the air. Lei Wen hurriedly raised his head and saw Lin Muyu wielding the elephant wheel, sneering at him. Moving like lightning, Lin Muyu punched down heavily. 10 elephant punishes the sky. This attack not only contained the power of the elephant wheel, but also the power of the ocean. Good move. The opponent's power made Lei Wen's body tremble, but he actually laughed and raised the muddy fire blade to defend. Sometimes, knowing that death was coming made people less afraid and more crazy. Boom. The turbid fire blade was actually unable to withstand a single strike from the iron fist, and broke in half. Lin Muyu's elephant chakra fist also landed heavily on Lei Wen's body. Originally, the astral energy around his body was able to withstand it, but to Lei Wen's despair, Lin Muyu's fist was not simple at all. Apart from the sharp elephant chakra god force, there was actually an endless coldness, as though the energy of the entire deep sea was gathered in that fist. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Lei Wen fell into the ocean along with his dragon. Before he even came into contact with the water, he had already breathed his last. A deity king of the 34th level grotto heaven was killed by a single punch from Lin Muyu. Bastard! Bai Minghuan roared, and the scarlet palm hit Lin Muyu's back with a powerful god power. Lin Muyu had killed Lei Wen with all her strength, so she naturally could not dodge Bai Minghuan's next attack. But she gathered all her divine power on her back, and the wall of the calabash broke out of her body, and with the help of the divine wall. Boom! Golden light splashed everywhere, and this palm attack made Lin Muyu's heart sink. Bai Minghuan was an emperor god after all, and his scarlet palm art was so powerful that it was not something an ordinary immortal state warrior could compare with. However, Lin Muyu took advantage of the fall of the palm and raised her arms. Her ice origin sword was imbued with vast divine power as she slashed at one of the Blood Cloak sect cultivators. Chaos of all life. Not only did this sword slash open Qinshi's body, it even tore Qinshi's body into pieces, and it shocked the group of experts in the surroundings to the point of being extremely astounded. Behind her, Bai Minghuan's palm came down from the sky. Lin Muyu quickly turned around and crossed her arms in front of her chest to defend. Buzz! The scorching palm swept across, but it did not break Lin Muyu's god wall. Instead, it left a huge palm print on the sea behind her and directly smashed a few Tianji Empire's battleships. Lin Muyu smiled disdainfully, and her body fell into the sea along with the power of the scarlet palm. Bai Minghuan's body trembled. His two palm strikes with all his strength did not break through the opponent's god wall. How did Lin Muyu's cultivation advance to such a terrifying level in just 1 month? Puff! Lin Muyu's body fell into the sea, and there was no news of her. Protect the battleships, don't panic, block the tsunami. Bai Minghuan shouted in the sky. Immediately, the warriors of all the sects used their unique skills and created many rock walls, light walls, and flame walls. In the blink of an eye, they formed a huge protective circle, protecting the hundreds of battleships from the incoming tsunami. Boom, boom, boom. The huge waves crashed on the wall created by the warriors, but the power of heaven was unpredictable. Many of the warriors with lower cultivation were immediately injured and vomited blood. There was a price to pay to shake the power of heaven. Just as everyone was struggling to resist the tsunami and protect the battleships, suddenly, beams of starlight appeared in the depths of the sea. "What is that?" the leader of the Blood Cloak sect asked, dumbfounded. Bai Minghuan had a bad feeling, and he hurriedly said, "Scatter, Lin Muyu is not gone yet." But it was too late. Boom, 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 beams of starlight roared out from the bottom of the sea, sinking and shattering the battleships on the sea. Not only did the stars destroy the battleships, but they could also kill people. In the blink of an eye, countless people had been killed by the stars' transformation. "Bastard!" Bai Minghuan roared, suddenly raised his arms, and the scarlet palm struck toward the deep sea like thunder. He roared, "Evaporate, you useless thing!" The sea was evaporating quickly. Bai Minghuan's power was above Lin Muyu's, but there was nothing he could do. In the deep sea, the power of the scarlet palm spread out like a blood-red thread, devouring the flesh and water. Lin Muyu felt a chill in her heart. This Bai Minghuan was indeed not easy to deal with. If they were to fight face to face, she might not be his match. Fortunately, there was no need to fight face to face. With less than 30% of his divine power left, he waved his hand, and a shining dagger appeared. Activating the power of heaven and earth, he disappeared on the spot. Swish! When she reappeared, Lin Muyu was dozens of miles away on the sea. Looking from afar, the sea was not calm at all. Flames shot up into the sky, and the shockwave formed by the tsunami would soon reach here. Go! Flying close to the surface of the sea, she quickly left this dangerous place. At the same time, she closed her eyes and sent her spiritual sense to the Luo River estuary fortress far away. She found Wei Chao's aura and asked, "What's happening at the Luo River estuary?" Wei Chao was standing on the wall and said, "The commander of the Flowing Spirit Army, Custer, is gathering his troops, about 100,000 people. It looks like they want to attack our steel wall. Your Highness, what should we do?" "Retreat." Lin Muyu said, "Send the order to Winter Frost City. Give up the East Capital. All the troops retreat to Zhangnan Province, and rely on the steel wall there to defend." "What? Give up the East Capital?" Wei Chao was shocked. "Why, Your Highness? The enemy's power is far above ours. They are attacking from the coast and the Luo River estuary at the same time. We can't defend it all. We can't let our soldiers die for nothing. Retreat, let the civilians go, and keep our army intact. Then we will have a chance to rise again." "Why?" Wei Chao was still puzzled. "They have at least 200,000 troops on the sea, 100,000 of them are cultivators." Lin Muyu said concisely. This, Wei Chao felt a heart-wrenching pain. "I understand. I will do it immediately." Giving up Winter Frost City, which he had been operating for a long time, made Lin Muyu feel distressed. But what could he do? All the efforts he had done just now could only be regarded as a nuisance. He could not completely destroy this fleet. How many people could the tsunami and 7 luminaries kill? 10,000? 20,000? Or even 30,000? But there was nothing more. The main force of Bai Minghuan's troops was still there. Once they reached the shore, Winter Frost City would fall. At this time, Lin Muyu was much more mature than before. He knew that some things should not be persisted. Holding Winter Frost City would only bring death and destruction. There was no hope. Chapter 893. At noon, a gentle breeze brushed past the steel wall. A figure slowly condensed into Lin Muyu's appearance. An honest aura enveloped the surroundings, making people feel reverence. "Greetings, Your Highness." A group of guards and soldiers on the city wall knelt down. "Dispense with the formalities." Lin Muyu looked to the south. An endless stream of carriages extended to the distant road. The more than 100,000 guards of the Luo River Estuary Fortress had already begun to retreat. However, there were a lot of provisions, and they had to move some equipment from the Spiritual Fire Department and the Spiritual Medicine Department. What was worse was that the magic crystal cannons were very heavy, and they could not be left to the Tianji Empire. Therefore, moving them was a very troublesome matter. These magic crystal cannons could withstand high heat and were made of 100-year-old cold iron. They were quite expensive. The Qin clan had already wasted a lot of their national power in these battles. They really couldn't afford to squander any more. Otherwise, they could just blow up all of them. Your Highness. Wei Chou walked over with a group of guards and said respectfully, the transfer will take at least 3 days. A large amount of resources will need to be transported into the Zhangnan province. I request to lead the guards' camp to stay behind and bring up the rear. No need. I will bring up the rear with you. Lin Muyu muttered. I delayed them for a while on the East Sea. Adding the distance from the East Sea to Winterfrost City, they will need about 3 days to reach Winterfrost City. What we need to guard against now is Custer's troops in the north of the Luo River Estuary Fortress. I think so too. Therefore, I left 10,000 elite infantry cavalry in the Longdan army camp. How is Winterfrost City? His Highness Qin Yan has already ordered the evacuation. Many confidential maps, files, and decorations in Lingxi Palace need to be transferred. This is also a huge project. No problem. Send a letter to Ah Yen and Fan Gong, ordering them to leave Winterfrost City within 2 days. They will be safe after entering the Zhangnan province. Then send a letter to Dragon Slaying Pass and order Su Jiantao to transfer some troops to assist in the defense of the Zhangnan province. When he looked to the north, the 100,000-strong flowing spirit army was already getting restless. There were many eagles circling in the air. It seemed like they had already seen through everything that was happening at the Luo River estuary. Lin Muyu turned around and saw that many soldiers were still dismantling the magic crystal cannons on the city wall. It would take half a day to transport all of them away. Lin Muyu couldn't help but frown. She gently raised her palm and shouted, Catasaurus, come out. Roar. This time, the Acatosaurus did not hesitate. It shook its head and rushed out of the alternate dimension. It was huge, almost an adult holy dragon. Go, help the soldiers move the magic crystal cannons. This was the order given by its master. Acatosaurus let out a wail. It had thought that it would have a great battle, but it didn't expect that it would only be summoned to carry bricks. In the distance, a huge dragon soared in the sky, repeatedly flapping its wings, moving a magic crystal cannon down from the city wall. It was Situ-Sin, the only dragon knight in the Qin army. In the afternoon, the sound of war drums came from afar, dong dong dong, very dense. But the Qin army in the Luo River Estuary Fortress was very few, only some transport soldiers and 10,000 infantry and cavalry in the Longdan army camp. If they really fought, it would be easy for the enemy to destroy the Longdan army camp. Wei Chou squinted his eyes. How do we delay? Lin Muyu smiled. What are you afraid of? Bai Minghuan and the experts of the King's sect and the Heavenly sect are still in the East Sea. Custer doesn't have any experts in his hands, and there are less than 10 dragon knights. I and the 4 masters of white leaves will delay them. No, I'll go with you. Wei Chou pulled out the demon-devouring bow and smiled. Your Highness, don't forget that Wei Chou is also at the immortal state now, although his cultivation is still low. Okay, then let's go together. An hour later, the sound of war drums became more and more intense. Tens of thousands of beast riders and heavy cavalry of the flowing spirit army were already less than 500 meters away from the Luo River estuary fortress. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Figures suddenly descended from the sky. It was Lin Muyu and the other 5, but all of them were immortal state warriors. Even the weakest, Wei Chou, was already at the 10th heaven. Clang! Lin Muyu pulled out the ice origin sword with a calm smile on her face. Ling Shu waved his paper fan and smiled. Successor, let the Beeman King attack first. This fellow's attack is fierce, and he has the cultivation of a god emperor. His skin is thick, and the weapons used by the ordinary people of the Flowing Spirit Army will definitely not be able to hurt the Demon King's body. Let's just hold the formation together. Lin Muyu looked at the Demon King and said, "You have to be careful." The Demon King didn't like to talk much and only roared in response. After which, his body was covered with golden divine walls and blood-colored gales. He slowly crawled on the ground and roared like a wild beast. In the next moment, his enormous figure shot out like lightning. He brought along a cloud of dust and a crazy storm as he rapidly broke into the enemy's battle formation. How could the soldiers of the Flowing Harmony Army expect the enemy to be so valiant? One by one, they couldn't help but be blown away like fallen leaves in the wind. Mother****. In the depths of the formation, the commander of the Flowing Spirit Army, Castor, raised his sword and shouted, "Tiger Leopard Cavalry and Dragon Riders, attack together. Archers, aim and shoot. These Qin army bandits are too arrogant. Do they think that they can block my 150,000 troops with just a few people?" The Tiger Leopard Cavalry roared as they charged out from the battle formation. Each of them took out the spears on their backs and started to throw them. The metal blades fell around the Demon King like rain and made clanking sounds. Although the Demon King was strong, it couldn't fight against 100,000 people alone. It was only a matter of time before it died from exhaustion. The Dragon Knights in the sky also started to fall. Go! Under Lin Muyu's command, Wu Tong and Zheng Jian had already waved their arms and fought with a few dragon riders. As for Wei Chou, he was shooting arrows from afar. Almost every arrow could take the life of a Tiger Leopard Cavalry. In terms of killing power, Wei Chou was indeed one of the best in the Longdan army camp. In the air, 2 dragon riders stabbed their spears at the same time. The spears gathered 2 types of divine power, one ice and one fire, and rushed towards Lin Muyu like 2 spiraling storms. Good move. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. She used the divine power in her eyes and activated the formless elephant art. She raised her left hand lightly and used the earth to look straight at the sky. A powerful aura rushed towards the 2 dragon riders. Ping ping. The dragon spears were rebounded. The 2 dragon riders didn't even know what had happened. They didn't know what had blocked their attacks. The difference in their realm was too big. They couldn't even see the essence of Lin Muyu's attack. Roar roar. The 2 dragon riders roared and spat out dragon flames. Lin Muyu swept her long sword horizontally, using her sword aura to shatter the dragon flames. After the dragon flames dissipated, a furious holy dragon appeared behind her. It was the Crimson Crystal Dragon that had just returned from carrying bricks. Seeing its master being surrounded, the Crimson Crystal Dragon was indescribably enraged. Its head in the form of an Eastern mystical dragon slowly turned around, shaking slightly. It let out a mighty roar, displaying the majesty of the King of Dragons. Roar roar. The 2 thunder dragons under the Dragon Knight instantly lost their momentum. In front of the red crystal dragon, their majesty was like a cat facing a tiger. In fact, at this moment, even the Dragon Knight's Dragon Imperial Battle Spin could not continue to operate. Kill them, Acatosaurus. Under Lin Muyu's command, Acatosaurus immediately pounced forward and pierced its claws into the neck of one of the thunder dragons. It opened its mouth and bit off a huge piece of dragon meat. Lin Muyu took the opportunity to stand on the dragon's head. She slashed her sword at the dragon rider's dragon spear. When the dragon spear flew out of his hand, Lin Muyu had already opened his palm. Heaven and earth, heed my command. An elephant will flew out and smashed the dragon rider's chest. Following that, it imprinted on the Flowing Spirit Army behind him and turned dozens of soldiers into a pile of blood and flesh. Lin Muyu raised her hand and grabbed the scattered godhood. After all, it was a mortal godhood. After putting it into her pocket, Lin Muyu immediately rushed toward another dragon rider. However, he ran very fast, and in the blink of an eye, only his figure was left on the giant dragon. On the ground, the tiger leopard riders and the wolf riders charged toward Lin Muyu. The soldiers of the Tianji Empire were proficient in mounted archery. One after another, arrows flew toward Lin Muyu, forcing her to take out the wall of the gourd to defend herself. After all, the divine wall would consume her essence qi. She couldn't let her opponent attack the divine wall for a long time. Otherwise, even a god would be bitten to death by ants like an elephant. Shock waves exploded in the crowd. The strength of the ice and fire duo was indeed extraordinary. Wei Chao's arrows shuttled through the crowd, preventing Castor, a commander-level warlord, from advancing. He could only stay at the back of the crowd. Buzz! The paper fan in Ling Shuxing's hands suddenly shone brightly. Icy air flowed around it. It was a divine book artifact embryo, and it was a middle-grade frost divine book. Have a look at my divine book. Scholar Ling let out a loud roar, and the sky was filled with gloomy clouds. In the blink of an eye, snowflakes began to fall, and the temperature on the ground suddenly dropped. Icicles rained down from the sky, piercing the tiger-leopard cavalry, wolf cavalry, archers, and heavy cavalry into a pile of flesh and blood. The power of the divine book was truly extraordinary, and in the blink of an eye, it had killed nearly 5,000 people. Unfortunately, Ling Shuxing could only write one divine book every half a month. Otherwise, he could really turn the tables. However, it was enough. At least, it was enough for now. Retreat, retreat. Castor finally couldn't help but order. If they continued to fight, the price would be too high. The opponents were 5 divine kings and 1 ultimate god. The deterrent force was too strong. On the empty ground, there was a dense pile of corpses. Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, and the 4 absolutes of white leaves stood in the field of corpses with indifferent eyes. The retreat of the Flowing Silence army was only temporary. They had lost close to 10,000 people in this battle, but the 5 of them had also used up a lot of their divine power. Lin Muyu was fine. Her supremacy would be able to replenish all her divine power in 4 to 6 hours. However, the rest would probably need at least 2 days to recover to their peak condition. They couldn't fight for a long time. If the Flowing Silence army came again, they had to retreat. Otherwise, they would die. Chapter 894. All the way until the evening, the Flowing Spirit army was still stationed in the distance. At midnight, in the distant starry sky, they were burying a pot and cooking rice. On the city wall, Wei Chou rubbed his nose and said, "When they are full, I am afraid they will come for us again. What should we do? We cannot fight them head-on in the next battle. Let's go, we are ready to leave." Lin Muyu looked into the distance. The last batch of magic crystal cannons had been transported away, and the 10,000 infantry in the Longdan army camp were also cooking. Everyone was waiting to finish their meal. Sidu Sin caressed the dragon's head and looked at the wall that was full of holes and marks of blades and axes. He said, "We spent 500 million Jining coins to build this wall. Are we really going to give it to the bandits?" Situ Shue's eyes also turned red. "Your Highness, once we leave, I'm afraid that millions of people in the Lingdong province will become destitute and homeless. The people of the Tianji Empire are all hypocrites. They don't care about the lives of the people at all. Instead, they will go around capturing people and forcing them to do hard labor, imposing taxes and levies to fill up their armies." "I know." Lin Muyu comforted the army. "Our departure is only temporary. The wall at the Luo River estuary will return to the empire sooner or later. We will also stand here again one day." "We will." Situsen said, "What does your Highness plan to do next?" "Protect the supplies, and store all our forces in the steel wall on the edge of the Daojiang River in Songnan province. Just like how we fought against the demon race, let's fight against the Tianji Empire. Let's give the Lingdong province to the Tianji Empire. I'd like to see how long Baiminghuan can stretch the battle line. The longer the battle line, the worse I can make him die." "Yes, this subordinate understands." At this moment, a letter from Yushu flew over. Lin Muyu opened it and glanced at it. Yushu came from Winter Frost City, Suyu. Her handwriting was graceful and Su Yu's handwriting was very similar to Qin Yin's, which always made Lin Muyu feel deep emotions. Yushu also informed Lin Muyu that the majority of the army had already left Winter Frost City. Only the military supply team was left to transport the large equipment, But there should be enough time. Pung pung pung. The sound of cannons came from afar. They were inferior cannons made from flammable trees. They had little power and could only be used as signal cannons. At this moment, the sound of cannons meant that Castor had ordered to attack the city again. Pass down my order, open all the gates of the city, Lin Muyu ordered. Wei Chou was stunned. But isn't this opening the door to a thief? Listen to my orders, pass them down. Yes. When all the city gates were opened, the army of the Tianji Empire stopped far away. They stopped about 1,000 meters away from the city. Their flags were swaying, and no one knew what they were doing. Sidu Shui couldn't help but laugh. Your Highness is indeed wise. The Flowing Spirit Army must be worried that we will bury the magic crystal cannons in the city and wipe them out, so Castor won't let them enter the city. That's right. This is called the empty city stratagem. Maybe we can buy some time for our military supply team. We will just guard here. Yes, yes. Sure enough, just as Lin Muyu had said, Castor's troops stationed outside the city didn't make any movements throughout the night. In the wee hours of the next day, Castor was cooking outside the city with smoke rising from the kitchen. This time, Castor wouldn't hesitate any longer. After the meal, he sent out a small group of rangers to scout the area. Wei Chou immediately drew his longbow. His shooting range was very long. After activating the power of the ghost god, he could achieve the accuracy of 100 shots within 500 meters. He could shoot one after another, leaving the opponent helpless. When the sun rose, the military supply team inside the city had already disappeared without a trace. Castor's patience was almost worn out. Lin Muyu looked at the restless army in the distance and couldn't help but laugh. All right, we should go too. Order the infantry and cavalry of the Longdan army camp to retreat slowly. Don't mess up the formation. We will go to Winterfrost City first and restock before going to Zhangnan province. Yes. The 10,000 infantry and cavalry of the Longdan army camp left quickly, leaving behind an empty city. However, Castor still waited until noon before ordering the army to enter the city. After entering the city, he realized that it was empty. Castor was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He pointed to the sky and said angrily, Lin Muyu, I swear I will chop off your head and sacrifice it to the flag. Along the way, there were scattered civilians everywhere. Many of them had already heard the news that the steel wall had been breached. When they saw the Longdan army camp carrying the flag of the Qin army, many of them didn't even dare to step forward and speak, fearing that this army was from the Tianji Empire. Lingdong province quickly fell, and everyone felt insecure. They no longer felt safe. When night fell, they arrived at Winterfrost City. It had also become an empty city. The temporary prosperity was like a dream, but now it had returned to its original state. There are still people in the food camp. They will leave after providing us with supplies, Wei Chou said. Yes, don't enter the city. Take the food and leave. Yes, Your Highness. Lin Muyu rode on treading snow and stood in front of the three armies. He looked up at the sky. It was a starless night, and it was pitch black. The sound of the wind came from the top of the pitch-black city wall. It was as if he saw the scene from 8 years ago, when the Yangwei army was destroyed in Winterfrost City. It was also at that time that the city wall was filled with the skulls of the Empire's soldiers. Were those heroic souls resting in peace now? He couldn't help but sigh. Your Highness, what's wrong? Sidu Shui asked softly. Lin Muyu shook her head and said, Nothing. I just suddenly feel so useless. I can't even protect a city, not to mention the people I love. Sidu Shui faintly smiled. Your Highness is thinking too much. Although you are a god, in the end, you are still made of flesh and blood. Moreover, you are facing an even more powerful opponent. Being able to achieve what you have today is already very difficult. If this continent were to have a different ruler, and if another person were to become the king of Qin, I'm afraid that the great Qin Empire would already be a thing of the past. Maybe, Lin Muyu clenched her fists and said, well, let's stop talking. Ask everyone to leave as soon as they finish their supplies. Maybe Custer will send the tiger leopard cavalry to chase us. Once we are caught, it will be difficult to leave. We must leave Winterfrost City within 2 hours. Traveling at full speed in the middle of the night, the infantry and cavalry of the Longdan army camp were marching at full speed, but the infantry's physical strength could not keep up. Therefore, the cavalry dismounted and the infantry mounted. They took turns to run, and they traveled nearly 100 miles in one night. In the early morning of the next day, before dawn, the army came to a ravine. Where is this? Lin Muyu looked around blankly. Sidu Shui unfolded the map, and Wei Chou held a torch to illuminate the area. Your Highness, this place is marked as Yellow Flower Mountain on the map. It is 300 miles away from the border of Tsangnan province. We are moving too slowly. Where are our supplies? They are probably behind us. We have lost contact with them. Lin Muyu frowned. The road was slippery at night, and it was indeed difficult to contact the supply army. However, it was impossible without the supply army. If they gave the magic crystal cannons to the Tianji Empire, then the Tianji Empire would use the magic crystal cannons against the steel wall. Then, the steel wall of Tsangnan province would be useless, and all their efforts would be in vain. No, we can't do this. Send a letter and order the rest of the troops of the Longdan army camp, Fan Gong's Godly Might Battalion, and Su Yu's Zither Dragon Army to come back and protect the supply army. We must protect all the supplies. Yes, I will do it right now. A few minutes later, dozens of messenger birds flew out, along with some Warhawk scouts. However, at this moment, there was an explosion not far away, and a purple mushroom cloud rose into the sky. A few seconds later, the shockwave formed a storm that swept into the ravine. It's the magic crystal cannons. But what's going on? Lin Muyu asked loudly. It's on the mountain. Wei Chou narrowed his eyes. I am afraid that one of our supply troops with the magic crystal cannons encountered the army of the Tianji Empire or bandits. Otherwise, it would be impossible. The safety device of the magic crystal cannons is very thorough. It is impossible for them to misfire. All cavalries, get on your horses and follow me to have a look. Yes. Nearly 5,000 cavalries of the Longdan army camp quickly got on their horses and followed Lin Muyu to the hillside at lightning speed. In the distance, one after another, giant bugs were roaring in the sky, spraying the dragon flame on the ground. How could the Qin army on the ground withstand it? Each and every one of them was howling miserably. This army was a team of the state guarding army. There were about 2,000 of them, but their opponent was the Dragon Knights of the Tianji Empire. In addition to the Dragon Knights, there were also some people on the ground who were wielding weapons and waving combat energy. They were wearing blood-red battle suits. They were the Godly Cloak army of the Blood Cloak sect. How did they arrive in the territory of Winterfrost City so quickly? They must have come with the Dragon Knights overnight. Moreover, there were many God State warriors among them, so it was not strange for them to fly here. Gong Shangming must have guessed that the Qin army would give up Winterfrost City, so he sent this army of Dragon Knights and God State warriors to intercept the supply of the Qin army first. Thinking of this, Lin Muyu felt so depressed that she almost vomited blood. Go! She leaped from the back of treading on snow, and the golden light of the invisible elephant spell shot into the sky. All things in the world, listen to my command. Lin Muyu raised her hand and struck with her palm, using the momentum of the wind. Boom, boom, boom. The wind became fierce, turning into bone-piercing wind blades, sweeping in the air. Suddenly, several Dragon Knights rolled away. The experts of the Blood Cloak sect on the ground also looked over, and one of them shouted, "It's Lin Muyu, let's go." Lightning flashed continuously, and several God State warriors broke the void and fled. Under the control of Lin Muyu's momentum, more than a dozen people did not manage to escape, and they were killed by Wei Chou, Sidu Sen, the four masters of White Leaves, and the others. The ground was a mess, with countless dead bodies of the National Army lying on the ground, and the magic crystal cannons were also broken in half. Several injured soldiers knelt on the ground and cried loudly, "Your Highness, our commander died for the country." Chapter 895. This was only one troop that had been attacked, but it also meant that there would be other troops that would be attacked by the godly clothing army that night. It would not be just this one. Lin Muyu felt a chill down her spine. Gong Xiangming seemed to have predicted that she would retreat. How did he do it? Your Highness, what should we do? Wei Chou was a little confused. He stood in the pool of blood with the demon-devouring bow. We can't go to Cangnan province directly. Lin Muyu's voice was very soft. She said, we can't let the other troops be attacked. Listen to my command. Send out all the scouts. The rest of you, follow me to the main road and cover the troops retreating from Winter Frost City. Yes, I will do it right now. It was not until the early hours of the morning that Lin Muyu's 10,000 infantry and cavalry killed 2 more troops of the godly clothing army that came to attack them. However, there were too many people returning from Winter Frost City to Cangnan province. Many troops along the way were attacked, and it was not just the army. Some caravans were also attacked by the godly clothing army. Treading Snow kept snorting. It was tired after a night of running. If Treading Snow was like this, the other warhorses were even more so. Some of the warhorses were even foaming at the mouth. They had to rest for a while, or the entire team would collapse. At this time, it started to rain. It was the rain of early summer. Sidu Shui held up a green oil paper umbrella and stood beside Lin Muyu to shield her from the rain. However, Lin Muyu gently pushed her hand away and smiled bitterly. She said, Ah Shui, there is no need. Thank you. Let's move now. Move. Sidu Shui blinked her big eyes. Move to where? Everyone is tired. Let's go to the nearby village to rest for a while. Feed the horses and get some food. Otherwise, I am afraid many people will not be able to hold on. Yes, yes. The rain was getting heavier, drenching everyone's armor. However, no one wanted to take shelter from the rain. They just moved forward in the muddy water, maintaining their formation. This was the prestige of the Longdan army camp. If it were an ordinary local army, they would have long scattered to hide from the rain. Treading Snow's hooves followed the potholes on the ground. Lin Muyu looked up at the sky. A powerful aura was rushing over. It was Ice Palm Wu Tong. Wu Tong landed in front of Lin Muyu with a wisp of icy air. He cupped his fists respectfully and said, Successor, I have news from the direction of Winterfrost City. Not long after we left yesterday, Winterfrost City was occupied. The occupiers are a group of cavalry who call themselves the Divine Cloth Army. There are about 30,000 of them. 30,000 cavalrymen? Lin Muyu frowned. Do they have any other plans? Yes. Wu Tong said, I have found out that the commander of the Flowing Silence Army, Castor, has also left the Luo River Estuary Fortress with the fastest cavalry and heavy cavalry. They have gathered with the cavalry of the Divine Cloth Army in Winterfrost City. They have about 100,000 cavalrymen now. 2 hours ago, a large number of cavalrymen left Winterfrost City and are rushing here. What did you say? They are rushing here? Yes. Lin Muyu frowned and did not say anything else. Wei Chou said in a low voice, Your Highness, what do you think Gong Xiangming is trying to do? This was the last thing Lin Muyu wanted to guess. Gong Xiangming seemed to know everything. Every attack was aimed at her weakest point. Lin Muyu clenched her fists and said, I am afraid we cannot go to Cangnan province. But Situ Sen and Situ Shui asked in shock. Because Gong Xiangming does not want us to go. Lin Muyu wiped the rainwater off her chin and said, They have gathered all the cavalrymen in order to kill as many of us as possible before we reach Cangnan province. If we continue to go in the direction of Cangnan province, I am afraid there will not be many of us left by the time we reach the steel wall of Dao River. No, we cannot go to Cangnan province. There is only one way. Wei Chou squinted his eyes and said, We will gather all the troops and supply teams and wait for them along the way. We will fight them to the death. This way, we may be able to force them to retreat. Otherwise, we will only die on the way. Our troops are too scattered to the point that we cannot fight back. No, there is another way. What way? Lin Muyu looked towards the south through the curtain of rain and said, This place is closer to Qinling Mountains. Our cavalry and infantry will not be fast, but once we enter Qinling Mountains, this disadvantage will no longer exist. In the mountains, their pure cavalry and our mixed infantry and cavalry will move at the same speed. We will follow the White Mang Mountain all the way to Lingkong Province and directly reach Zhanlong Pass and rendezvous with Su Jiantao's troops. This is the only way. But Wei Chou frowned and said, Zhanlong Pass not only has Su Jiantao, but also the exiled Angel Corps. I am afraid this may not be the best choice, Your Highness. It is better than sitting and waiting for death. All right, there is no need to discuss anymore. Lin Mu lightly waved her hand. After entering the village, rest for 6 hours. Send out a letter and order all the surrounding imperial troops who could not retreat in time to gather and then go to Qinling Mountains together. Fortunately, this early summer rain stopped after a short while. After the sky cleared up, 2 troops gathered. One was Su Yu's Zither Dragon Army, and the other was Jin Yifun's God Might Battalion. The Zither Dragon Army had 8,000 soldiers, while the God Might Battalion had 10,000. Together with Lin Muyu's 10,000 infantry and cavalry from the Longdan Army Camp and part of the Winter Frost City's garrison troops, they quickly gathered around this small village of 40,000 soldiers. After the troops set off, another group gathered along the way. It was another branch of the Longdan Army Camp. There were more than 7,000 soldiers, and the total number of soldiers was close to 50,000. Other than that, there were still many civilians who were unwilling to leave. However, many of them did not leave when they saw the Qin Emperor's flag and followed the troops from afar, unable to be driven away. Situ Sin came from the back of the troops with his sword in hand and said in a low voice, Your Highness, the situation is not good. The civilians of Winter Frost City and the surrounding provinces are unwilling to leave. What should we do? If we bring them along, not only will they be too big of a target, but they will also slow down our march. What should we do? How about I send out cavalry to disperse them? Lin Muyu raised her hand in a hurry. We can't be so unreasonable. If we really do that, we won't be able to return to Lingdong Province in the future. Then what should we do? Come with me to have a look. Yes. When Lin Muyu brought Wei Chou, Sidu Sen, and Su Yu to the back of the army, they saw a dense crowd of civilians following from afar. They had brought their families with them. Some were pushing wheelbarrows with rations and farming tools on them, while others were driving donkey carts. All of them looked tired, and many of them were still soaked. No one had escaped the heavy rain just now. Emperor Qin. It's His Highness Emperor Qin. His Highness Emperor Qin is here. The civilians recognized Emperor Qin, and they quickly knelt on the ground to worship him. For the civilians, Emperor Qin was the only symbol of the Qin family. It was because of him that the Qin army had the courage to continue to contend with the powerful enemy. Lin Muyu got off the horse and said with a gentle look, Dear elders, the 300,000 soldiers of the Empire of Tianji will be here in the blink of an eye. Lin Muyu is incompetent, and I have few soldiers. I can't resist the powerful enemy, so I can only abandon Lingdong. You should run away on your own. Don't follow the army. I swear, as long as there is a chance, I will lead the army to kill our way back and recover our lost land. An old man stood up shakily with the help of a walking stick and said, Your Highness, we have nowhere to go. Along the way, there are not only thieves, but also bandits and bullies in the mountains. If we don't follow the army, I'm afraid we can't escape death. Your Highness, no matter where you go, we are willing to follow you. Please don't abandon us. The rest of the people chimed in, and some even began to wail loudly, their grief spreading everywhere. Lin Muyu frowned. He was not a hypocritical person. He did not know these civilians and had no connection with them. But he knew that if he refused such a request, the Qin family would lose the support of the people in Lingdong. At that time, it would be even more difficult for him to recover Lingdong. He thought for a while, then said in a clear voice, You can follow me, but if you have a chance to live in a nearby village, don't hesitate. If you follow me, you will be homeless and miserable and suffer a lot. Moreover, our army doesn't have enough food, so I can't distribute it to you. I hope you can understand my difficulties. You can follow me, but the army of the Empire can't be burdened by the civilians anymore. Otherwise, we won't even have the capital to make a comeback. Yes, Your Highness, we all know that. Your Highness, we will never be a burden to the army. Rest assured, Your Highness. The civilians spoke with certainty. But in the evening, a group of beast cavalrymen of the Empire of Tianji appeared on the horizon, and the civilians fled in all directions. In the sky, a huge black eagle was circling. It was the wolf falcon of the Dragon Knights. Gong Shangming must have found the main force of the Empire of Tianji. Wei Chou raised his hand and shot an arrow, killing the wolf falcon directly. But it seemed that there was nothing he could do. They are here. Ling Shu descended from the sky and said, at least 50,000 cavalrymen and almost 50 Dragon Knights. I also feel the aura of the God Emperor. Bai Minghuan should be here as well. Wei Chou begged, Your Highness, let's fight. We can't just hide like this. Lin Muyu's voice was calm. We don't have magic crystal cannons, and we don't have too many devil heart arrows and white drill arrows. Plus, they have the elite troops of the godly army. Not to mention our 50,000 soldiers, even the 100,000 elite soldiers of the Longdan army camp at their peak might not be able to defeat them. We can't fight, we can only retreat. Pass down my order. The whole army is to keep marching to the Qinling Mountains, and the 2,000 soldiers of the 3rd Battalion will stay behind to stop them. Wei Chou's voice trembled. Your Highness, are you going to let the 2,000 brothers of the 3rd Battalion die? Lin Muyu nodded, but didn't deny it. Sidu Sun stood at the side, stunned. After so many years, Lin Muyu had indeed changed. He was no longer as unyielding and intense, but he had also become more calm and steady. Although he had changed, he was more qualified to be the commander-in-chief of the 3 armies. Only such a person could turn the tide and reverse the situation. However, when Sidu Shui saw Lin Muyu clenching his fists so tightly that his veins were bulging, and his fingertips almost pierced through himself, she couldn't help but feel a little distressed and said, Your Highness, let my brother pass the order, okay. Lin Muyu patted Taksha's head and said, Continue to march at the speed of the army, don't stop. Under the setting sun, a group of 2,000 infantrymen holding heavy shields and spears left the formation. Under the command of the battalion commander, they all smashed their shields to the ground, and spears pierced through the gaps between the shields. Pairs of eyes stared straight at the densely packed enemies in the distance, as if they had formed a steel wall in the open field. However, this steel wall was made of flesh and blood. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.